No, I
Creating
had
a
to
new
put
live
the
broadcast. All right, it should be there in a second
I
now.
had to put the controller on the back on the Switch.
We'll wait and see if there's any evidence of us going live. I think we should be. I've only done it in the one place this month instead of doing it on YouTube. There we are. Look at that. Oh my word. I'm going to have to mute it when it comes up, aren't I? Yes, I am. There we are. We're live. Nobody there
You're
at the
beyond
moment.
clever, Mike.
I did announce it, I think, yesterday. We kind of did the top 10 the other night and decided we had to do news today because there weren't any other days. So, short notice. We may be joined by some. Oh, yes, Glenn Minette, Combi, said he'll be at work. He's down under, so he said he'll be at work and might catch it. So, there he is. He's there already. Good evening, Glenn. You great galah. So
Flaming Galar.
so we have some updates.
You can get attacked by a dingo on the way into the program. There was there was a an article on that the other day about this lady who was attacked by a dingo at the beach, right? And of course, it shows her in a
Yeah.
bikini with the dog going right down on the ass cheek. I mean, like he couldn't have bit her any other way on the.
I did see that video. Yeah. It's 4 a.m. and he's working hard. Well, good luck with that. So are we, but it's not 4 a.m. So we have the usual roundup of what we've been up to in this last month, and it's been quite a bit this last month. I'll start off with movies. When Scott was here, we watched Greyhound. I'd had it for a while, but just never watched it. Good film. I'm not a massive Tom Hanks fan, but good film.
Same here. By the way, Michael, did you know? I'm not a massive Tom Hanks fan either, but I mean, he's the same character in every movie, and they keep putting him in everything. So it is, in fact, you're watching the kid from young adult from Big dancing on, a giant piano. Later, Captain. He's the same guy. He plays the same character, but he's always been a bit of a mystery to me. Like, he is a Hollywood type. He does like crap all over, a lot of people that aren't, readily identified with the Hollywood types. Then he goes and makes movies about their accomplishments and acts like he's cool with it. I don't fucking understand him a bit, but I'll say this. There's a model company that's been around since I think the 50s called Lindbergh. And they have made a model called the Blue Devil Destroyer. It's been in production for, I think, since the early 60s. Still in production. And it is a beautiful 36-inch long model of the Fletcher class destroyer, which was that destroyer that was in Greyhound. So I built one of those years ago. They're still in production, as far as I know. They're readily available. I think they're still literally made from the same molds that was done in the 60s. But it was kind of rekitted in the late 70s. And, back when, early 70s, I think like 75 or so, mid-70s, when radio control was definitely established, but still kind of not as common. But it comes with instructions in the kit that haven't changed since the fucking early 70s, mid 70s, to, convert the thing to radio control, which is much better done with other equipment on the market. But if you're ever bored and you want to build a model of the destroyer in Greyhound, there's a great kit on the market. So back to you, Michael.
I see Random's changed his image. Vegetable enthusiast.
Vegetable enthusiast. He is.
He is. So we watched Greyhound when Scott was over here. We'll talk more about that in a sec. Scott's visit.
We just did.
We kind of did a little bit. So a couple of weeks ago now, Saturday before last, I was involved in a little fender bender. Driving down the road, I was on cruise control at 50. It's a 60-mile-an-hour road. There's a car coming the other way, and they decided...
I'm not believing a word of this.
They decided to try my side of the road, so They were heading straight for us. I managed to avoid a head-on collision, and they just wiped out all the side of my car. Ripped the rear wheel off, ripped their front wheel off, and they carried on and hit a tree. We spun round and came to a rest on 3 wheels. So I'm betwixt cars at the moment. I have got a courtesy car until they pay me out and we settle up and all of that stuff. But it wasn't a fun week. So I'd had all the airbags on my side, but still got, some aches and pains and stuff. But Paula had no airbags on her side, just the seatbelt, and she came off a bit worse than I did. So we've been having like a movie week. We just put some movies on, that you don't really have to concentrate on, just a bit of entertainment. So every night this week we watched one of the Indiana Jones movies. I've seen the older
ones. Fast and Furious 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
I've only ever watched
Gone in 60 Seconds.
I've only ever watched one Fast and Furious. That was enough. So yeah, we watched all the Indiana Jones movies. The first 3 I'd already seen. I'd seen the 4th one, the Crystal Skull. I'd seen that once when it first came out. Wasn't that impressed with it. I enjoyed it more second time around. The last one was probably the weakest of the lot, although 2 isn't that great. But just enjoyed them all. And the new one wasn't as bad as I was expecting. It was quite entertaining. TV shows, one based on a true story. It's a 3 or 4-parter. The Thief, His Wife and the Canoe, about an English guy who fakes his death and for the insurance money. Watched that. Watched an American comedy called Platonic with Seth Rogen and I think Rose Byrne, is it? Something like that. It's all right, not bad. The new season of Brassic, I watched all that. And what else have I just finished? A new season of something. Can't remember. It's gone. So, games-wise, I have been going through. So, for the last few months, I've been thinking about, picking up a new handheld for emulation and some new games and stuff, maybe. But I just can't decide on one. There's so many out, across each price point. There's so many options. They all tend to do much the same thing, but every time I decide, I don't need to spend that money because I can still do everything up to PS1 on the Pandora, and everything beyond that I can do on my phone. So I just can't bring myself to pull the trigger. So I just went through some of my old handhelds and, charged the ones up that have internal batteries, put batteries in the others and fired them up and just made sure they all still worked. Picked out the Gizmondo, and I'll just flick camera here, because the Gizmondo, as well as lots of other plastic items, could be retro items, may not be. You get them out after so long, and the Gizmondo, it's on camera there, if I can stop hitting the microphone. So originally it had like this rubber feel coating on it, and that starts to perish and just gets really, really sticky. Sticks to everything. And I've had a few other, console handheld grips that you put on like the SP and the PSP and stuff. They would have the same rubber coating. And once it perishes, you just need to get it off there. It's just awful. So I got some rubbing alcohol, some cotton wool, spent an hour or so cleaning up the Gizmondo. And you get down to just the shiny plastic that's underneath all that coating. And it feels great. It looks a lot better, actually. So I cleaned that up. Had a play about with that again. Just went
through. So, Michael, I did just check. Remember I was telling you about how that happens to a lot of exotic cars? They call that coating soft touch, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they put it over every plastic piece inside exotic cars. So what will happen is one day you'll look up at your vents and you'll notice like there's hair stuck on the car, on the vent.
Yeah.
Like just random, pet hair that came off your shirt or whatever. And then you'll notice like dust accumulate, and then you'll reach over to like change the radio and your finger will stick to the thing, right?
Yeah.
So you can pull off all these parts and mail them off. The company is called Sticky No More. And they basically do the same thing. They they alcohol wipe the the thing, and then they recoat it and cure it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the cheapest price on here, okay, shifter trim, $270. So you figure if you send off that those Gizmondo pieces and just ask them to process them, I'm sure they would. You could then get them refinished, with a proper soft touch, and everybody around you would have their filthy, sticky Gizmondos, and you would have like
look how mine
the
doesn't
most
stick to
expensive
anything.
Giz. And you got some guy sitting there with it on their hand, they're trying to play, and it's
God damn it.
Meanwhile, you like, where'd you get that done? Same place of services, Lamborghinis.
So yeah, played about.
Getting a hit. You would have had a crowd following you around Blackpool. It would have been excellent.
Yeah, played about with some emulation stuff. I've got a PC over there with RetroPie on and loads of console emulators and stuff. But there's always a problem doing like GameCube and PS2 on RetroPie because of various reasons, 32-bit, 64-bit emulators and various drivers that can, if you change the driver, stop other emulators working and all that. So because basically RetroPie, you build a Linux distro, then you install RetroPie on top of it. But I've been playing around with Batocera this last couple of weeks, and Batocera is a full distro, so it's the whole OS, and all the drivers are in there, all the emulators are in there, all the folders are already there, with a few free homebrew games in a couple of systems just to get you started. And you can do GameCube and PS2 and even PS3 and Xbox Original, all on the same box. You can do Wii and Wii U, and obviously all the older stuff as well, consoles and computers. And you just drop your files in there, and it's pretty much seamless in the same way as adding things to RetroPie. But you don't need to install emulators. They're already there for you. It's, like I said, it's the whole distro. You boot the PC off a USB drive, install the distro, and it's there for you. Copy stuff to it, and you're away. You don't even need to configure your controllers if you don't want to. I plugged in the Google Stadia with a USB cable, and it just picked it up. It said, yeah, you've plugged in a Stadia, and it configured all the buttons and everything for you. Standard control configurations on there. So it was just fantastic. I think I prefer it now to RetroPie. It looks the same. It runs Emulation Station as the front end, but all the under the hood stuff is all taken care of for you. And if you were looking to get GameCube and PS2 working at the same time through emulation, then I would go the Batocera route. And you can also, I was looking, some of these handheld consoles that I've been looking at, you can install and boot Batocera on some of those as well. So I'm not pulling the trigger yet. I may not do. There's a few on the horizon that I'm looking forward to coming out, so I'll wait and see what they bring and maybe get one at that point. But at the moment, I'm just not compelled enough to go out and spend all that money on something that I can already do with other things. So that is about me, apart from Blackpool, which I can guess we can talk about in a bit.
We can. It's funny on the mobile thing. I've got a number of things. I've got, everything from the old school GP1 to the GP32X. I've got the, that thing that came out about 12 years ago. It's right here. Let me get it. The Neo Geo X, that one. From a few years ago. Yeah. I've got a as far as general purpose portables, I've got somewhere in there my PlayStation Vita that I've never really used. I bought it to play remote. Remote play doesn't work unless you have, the internet pipeline of God with absolutely zero, let's say you take it to a Starbucks. Don't go to Starbucks, but let's say you were at Starbucks. It ain't working there. Let's say you go any hotel ever, not working there. Workplace, not working there. So any place that has any kind of hardware firewall, any kind of just corporate Barracuda, user management, internet filters or firewall order, it's not working. So it literally only works at my house, which negates remote play, or it works like if I went to your house. I don't know transatlantic. I don't know, but basically there's no use case where remote play worked. So that's useless. So I have that PlayStation Vita that I could reflash, and I've thought about it from time to time, and you can play a lot of games on that. I've got any number of little Linux, boxes, whatever. But like, what do? I get on the bike or in a car. I go to work. I come home, and anywhere else I go, the only times I ever I do stay in a lot of hotels on motorcycle trips, but I just we usually get to the hotel, we're hanging out and bullshitting. So the majority of the gaming I've ever done on the road is I'll bring I've got it somewhere up here. I'll bring one of my there it is, my RetroPie with 2 controllers, and just chuck it up to the TV in the hotel, and then fire up like RBI baseball, and 2 of you, even if the other dude hasn't played Nintendo since '87, he's going to be able to jump right in. You're going to have a good time, So I look at all these new, like the Steam Decks and all the various mobile gadgets, and I say to myself, yeah, I'll buy that and then use it when? And the answer is really never. Because if I'm home, I just come here in the studio, and then I've got the the history of video games around me. So I don't know, man. I know for some people, I'm sure it fills a niche. I'm glad it's there. I want them to run and emulate everything perfectly, but I just don't have a use case for it.
So what else have you all been up to?
Well, other than not mobile gaming, so I finished up Legend of Zelda. I was looking for something to play, and I jumped in on the game I was telling you. I wasn't sure if I liked it or not, which was Generation Next, or not Generation Next, Generation Zero. So anyway, basically it's Sweden, and all these robots show up. They're not aliens. They're built by, I guess, some mad scientist. And so you run around Sweden constantly trading up weapons, trying to deal with robots of uncertain origin. And that, I mean, it's an okay game. It's definitely kind of buggy. It's kind of wonky, but it's great scenery. It's a different kind of gameplay, a different storyline. Finally, something different. So I played that a bit, and I'm going to go back to it. But then I decided, MechWarrior 5, let's give that a go. And I really do enjoy MechWarrior 5. It is just like any of the other MechWarriors. Dropship brings you to the planet, which is basically, it kind of reminds me of you remember, like, you guys play Warcraft 3, right?
I've seen it. I've not played it.
All right. So basically you always have like this square map, and the action, you get dropped off in the corner, and then you go around that map, and they have various, but it's always a square. And they have various, like a maze or whatever the terrain features are laid out inside that square. So you'll assault a position, you'll destroy a factory, you'll, trash a power generation facility, you'll shut down the orbital guns, whatever it takes. And then, you can buy insurance for the damage that's going to happen to the mechs. Of course, that's wasting. You have only so many negotiation points, right? So you go into a mission, you say, okay, I want 2 points spent on damage to the mechs. I want 2 points for salvage, and I want 2 points for money, and you're allotted 6 points. Or you could go, I want 6 points for cash, and I'm pretty sure my mechs won't get destroyed on this mission. So you start buying better and better mechs and upgrading them. Every time you can get that one AC-10 cannon with the extra dot next to it, you do that. And it's fine and good. And I am playing that, but it is not much of a storyline. There is a storyline, kind of, but it's not robust. It's not like, the other mech game, Titanfall. It's not, yeah. Well, it's not like Titanfall 2, where you've got this epic, deep, well-written scripted storyline. It's more like, oh, go over here and these guys will have a mission, and then there's no storyline to speak of. But it's a good playing game. I'm having fun with it. So been doing that, and then a whole lot of BBS gaming. The BBS, there's two that I like to use, and both of them have Trade Wars games that have been recently refreshed. So I'm mainly using my Tandy. It's right over here, my Tandy 1000HX, which is a DOS XT class machine, but it's all pimped out. It's got the memory maxed out. It's got the NSE V20, Gotek floppy emulator, VGA graphics card, which it never could have had by design. Ethernet card. I've got the modem emulator that uses the ESP32 module. So basically, just sign on to BBSs and start playing Trade Wars. So it's great fun. In fact, every now and then, like Mike, you were talking about how you took out your handhelds, charged the batteries, conditioned them, went them. You got to do that, especially all these things now. Like I'm looking up here, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, probably a dozen of these little things. The Atari 2600 handhelds, the Superboy, the Genesis, all these different things that have these lithium packs in them, and they age, right? So ideally speaking, Mike, if you charge them to 100% and then store them, you're likely to have battery swelling. You want to charge them to about 80%. So what you do is you charge them up and you say, okay, how long does this run? It runs, say, 100 minutes. So you run it for 20 minutes, run it down, right? So you want to do that because if you put them away charged, it's almost as bad as putting them away uncharged, right? So do a 80%-ish remaining charge, and they'll last the longest. And you want to do that at least once a year. But no, that said, I had the the one I was looking at, the batteries. Sorry, I get so much shit. I was looking for the one I was just looking at, and it's just stacks of gaming consoles here. But anyway, Mike, I forgot which one I was looking at. I'm sorry. We'll have to. I'll look up and it'll stick out at me from the pack there. But anyway, so I been doing all the BBSing, and then Random here brought up Mario Wonder. And once you get to like the third or fourth year between Nintendo releases of like Zelda or Mario or things that aren't Happy Cooking Hero 14 and Playful Puppies and Kittens 6 and the Powerpuff Girls or whatever, you stop looking, right? Like if it's been 3 damn years and there's still not another Zelda announced, I'm not optimistic it's going to come out in the next week. So I just stopped looking, right? So Random here brought up that Mario Wonder was out. And so, went by the local store. Of course, they don't have it. Just Amazoned it, showed up. I think they call it Mario Wonder because you wonder who this is made for. It literally is. Well, I'm not here to completely, slag it, and say it's shit. It's not. It's graphically incredibly, it showcases what the hardware really can do. Like when you saw that like first GameCube, like say Metroid, that really looked like it wasn't on the GameCube, it is good. There's a lot of content, a lot of levels, but it is either made for 7-year-olds or heavy users of psychedelic drugs. So either you have like a basket of MDMA next to your gaming station, or you're 7. That has to be who this is made for. Because like when it opens up, you're going through it, and you're like, this is like Mario for like, I don't know, even 7-year-olds. Like the kid, the ones that can barely speak, that they have like those poorly CGI animated kids shows for them, where it's just like very slow motion and the bouncing ball over the words so they can follow. And it's done to that level. It's like, what? This is for freaking 4-year-olds. And then you start, like, you get through the tutorial area, and all the dancing flowers and rainbows settle down just a tad. And then you're into like, oh, I found a flower, and everything just went to shit. The entire landscape just turned into honey, and now I'm trying to run through honey and leap and chase these things and get these things that are chasing me. It's freaking weird, man. Yeah, I don't know. I'm having a good time playing it now that I'm kind of out of the starter area. But I really did think, okay, it's for 4 or 5 year olds, and now it's for Timothy Leary's disciples. I don't know. Very, very strange. But yeah, that's what I've been up to. And sooner or later, I'll remember what that other console was that I was messing with. So, and then we went to Blackpool, and Random was there.
He was.
I was. Well, I'll do my quick roundup, and then I suppose we can talk about Blackpool. So yeah, gaming wise, I've also had finished Zelda. It's been a few months since I've been on the news, I think it feels like. And then I sort of wrapped up the end of Cyberpunk, started Pikmin 4, but then got sidetracked by F-Zero 99 coming out, which is just right up my alley. I can just sit and zone out and just play it, and I'm not the best. The people who are the best are absolutely bonkers, but I can do top 20 finishes consistently, if not sort of breaking into the top 10 quite a bit. So very much enjoying that. A little bit of a dabble with Forza Motorsport. It's got some performance issues, we'll say, but the driving feels quite nice, but the structure of the actual game is a bit weird as a game. But I might get back into sort of doing my Sunday driving streaming that I used to do years ago, because it's quite just feels just the first Forza where it's actually felt sort of quite good, and not too sort of too much that it's drifted into the arcade realm. And then the other thing I was dabbling about with was trying to get back into Beatmania and sort of try and play that more regularly, so keep my skills up. Unfortunately, I had another stab at fixing my 7-button controller, but that is properly dead as far as I know. So I'm just restricted to a 5-button controller, which isn't ideal, but I might solve this problem around my birthday. I'm trying to drop hints to my mates who buy me stuff to see if they'll buy me a new one. Yeah, and then I got Mario Wonder.
I was just from buying Mike something. What I miss?
That's been taking up my time since it came out. Obviously early on it is a bit sort of gentle. It's easing you in. It's because games have not got manuals, so it's kind of, you can see where they're trying to use the environmental triggers and visuals to sort of coax you into learning that, oh, you can jump, and if you jump and hit certain things will happen. And the fundamentals of Mario that you would have learned in a manual, but they just don't tell you anymore. So jumping on Koopas, you can get their shells. It sort of eases you into this, but once you're out of that, it sort of kicks in, and it follows the tradition that they've been doing of, getting to the end of the levels not so hard. Collecting the 3 collectible MacGuffins in a level, that's a bit more difficult. And then I like in this one as well.
The search rooms were interesting, weren't they? Where there's 6 of them in one area.
Oh yeah, the little sort of no time. Well, everything's got no time limit, which is interesting. I'll get onto. But yeah, there's just areas with no enemies. You've just got to find where they've hidden 5 tokens, and they can be quite. One of them I'm stumped on one of the tokens. Can't find it. Good overall, very good design, and there's some interesting. So because you've got no time limit, they've brought back secret exits from Mario World. And the structure of the world maps kind of like Mario World. They've sort of clearly taken a lot of inspiration from there, and so finding some of those hidden exits is quite good fun. And there's really nice way that things are hidden, and some new things in there, like pushing pipes around and things which you never used to be able to do, and just some weird bits and bobs. And then obviously the Wonder Flower that makes everything go into acid mode is just surprises me how many ideas they've had, and they're not. A lot of them aren't just, oh well, that was clearly like, you know, the interns came up with a load of ideas, and we just put them in because we've run out of anything else. We just need to fill stuff.
I think they took Peyote Sweat Lodge.
Yeah, they're all pretty much universally solid, like gameplay twists and graphical twists, and you know, shake up the entire thing. And like I've been genuinely surprised about what's going on a number of times, and it's just all, you know, crazy. Like you just don't think that you're going to see it in a Mario game, and they've just really, really done a good job of making that sort of everything sort of sing there. Loads of polish in it. Yeah, worth sort of waiting for. You know, the new Super Mario Brothers series. There's the one on the Wii U I quite liked, but the others generally, I went back to the DS original, which at the time was like, oh, this is great. They're doing like a throwback to the original Mario Brothers, and like playing it now, it's like, yeah, this isn't so great, is it? And then the sequel to that on the 3DS, I like jumped into that again, and I was like, this is absolute dog shit. It just feels like absolute crap to play, and there's no point to the gimmick of the coin collecting. But that was what was nice about Mario Wonder, is like it actually felt as crisp as the two, you know, the purely 2D ones, which is nice.
What feels so bad on the DS one?
It's the inertia, and there's like almost like a delay on the jump, and then there's too much weight, just in general. Like if you stop running, you know, it's too much inertia. You keep going, but like it's just hard to do sort of precision platforming. And to a degree, Wonder suffers a little bit in terms of like compared to like Mario World, where you'd be running through really fast, and you know you could be really, really technical, jump on a pixel precision. And Mario Wonder's kind of got that, but then because you've got the wall jump, occasionally it'll kind of sticky you to a wall just when you want to just drop to the floor and just be really fast and avoid something. So some of that has crept in, but getting used to it mostly. So yeah, that's gaming. Films and TV. Watched Alien vs Predator 2 finally. Perfectly decent, serviceable film. Enjoyed that quite a bit. Maybe not as much as the first one, but still pretty good. I don't, you know, people do complain about it, but I find it fine. Watched E.T. Didn't think that's. I was the last time I watched it was sort of back at uni when they did the DVD like anniversary release, I think. And I was like, I'm not sure I actually really like this too much. And then watching it again now, I think this the first time since then, I was like, yeah, it's not that great a film, I don't think. And then the premise of this fucking clumsy dumbfuck is able to navigate the fucking universe is just beggars belief as well. But I did find it quite funny that I'd never really noticed before that the whole point of them visiting the planet was because their spaceship is just a hydroponics lab inside, and they're just going around scavenging more plants to grow in their little intergalactic hydroponics capsule. So,
yeah, who knew lemongrass really got them fucked up? We come to Earth for ferns, man.
Following that, I wanted to watch Flight of the Navigator again. So did, and that definitely still holds up. That's a much better film than E.T. Still very enjoyable. And then TV-wise, I watched some gaming stuff. Watched the Twisted Metal series, which was much better than it had any right to be. It's just generally quite good fun. One episode's a bit weird where they're trying to like flesh out a bit of the characters before they sort of go on to the final push of the story, and it's just kind of a bit of a nothing episode. But overall, good fun.
I thought they did a good job with the clown guy.
Yeah, with Sweet
and
Tooth. He was a great character actually.
So I never really played that game much. I never really thought it was. It's one of those games like Crazy Taxi that you're supposed to like, but I found it utterly simplistic and boring as fuck. You run around and you bump into shit and oh look, I scored points. I just didn't get into those games. So I was never a fan of that game, like, ever. But the show was mixed. The guy that played, Sweet Tooth, I thought was really kind of saved the show. The alleged lead guy that runs around in the 2002 Subaru, just, I don't know, nothing. They could have picked anybody else from any random coffee shop in Hollywood and gotten a better job out of them. And then the rest of it's pretty forgettable. I honestly can't remember one other character. The premise of, like, okay, so the cities of, sort of isolated, and you got these runners between it. Okay, I don't know. I'm mixed.
All right. Yeah, and I watched the new Castlevania animated Netflix Nocturne, which is sort of based on the lead up to Rondo of Blood. Didn't think it was anywhere near as good as the first Castlevania series. I think it was just mainly it was either the voice acting or the writing or a mixture of both that just sort of lost a lot of the fun snark and things like that. And I think maybe the overall plot just wasn't quite so cool as the original, where you had Dracula and you had the Forge Masters making night creatures, whereas this one, like, Dracula's dead, and you've got sort of other lead vampires and a church that's supposed to be doing good, but they're actually secretly making all the night creatures, and it's wasn't as good, unfortunately. So it's a bit of a shame. And then quickly, sort of going back to ET, while we're watching that, I'd recently put a basket on the front of my sort of commuter bike. I still go off road on it, but probably not with a basket. But I can't believe
you put tassels on the handlebars as well.
Yeah. Oh, I should do, actually. Like,
when I say
cards
bike,
and the spokes.
When I say bike, it means one thing only ever: motorcycle.
Your mama.
Either.
Yo, mama.
Yeah, either high power racing, sports bike, or like big giant cruiser. It never means to me bicycle.
Yeah, bicycle. But yeah, I couldn't believe that, because I thought the basket's green and the bike sort of a red, white, and black color scheme. So I was like, I should paint it at some point. And then I was like, wait a minute, why don't I just paint it white and get a little ET doll and just permanently just cable tie an ET doll in it and just go around, like, permanently cosplaying as with ET. So
you're gonna get robbed.
Yeah.
You're gonna get robbed. Someone's gonna take one look at you and go, "Let's take his shit."
Yeah.
You better hope that doll can help you fly over that tree line, or some of Sheffield's finest gentry are gonna be taking your wallet and phone, and then having their way with you.
Random people already shout abuse at you.
Yeah, sex pest.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
Pervert.
I mean, all fairness, if I just didn't know random and saw him rolling by, I'd probably yell sex pest too.
So, let's get on to Blackpool then. So, Scott obviously came over on the Friday before Blackpool, and we headed over there.
Almost, barely.
Yeah, almost, yeah. It looked like he wasn't going to make it at one point, but then somebody pulled the finger out, and he did get here. So I picked him up from the airport. We went out for food and then headed over to Blackpool and spent Friday night in Arcade Club. Not been to the Blackpool one before, and it was great. It was very different. It was
really,
different to the Berry one, but I thought
the Berry
was
one's
equally
great.
As good.
The Berry one's really good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just this one. Like, if you had said to me, "Hey, let's go to the one in Berry and then head up to Blackpool," I would have been fine with that too. I'd go to either one. They're different. Like, the one in Berry has a larger collection, but the one in Blackpool has a much larger restaurant bar, staff, like they're actually staffed, like, because you can tell, like, say, ground control, right? And not, bagging on them. Like, in fact, Clay literally said, yeah, we have a microwave and like pizza. So if you order pizza, you'll eventually get it. But we have to do that by law. We're not really trying to sell pizza. We're trying to send that message.
Yeah.
And because sometimes that's just required by, whatever silly food and beverage. We won't have as many alcohol-inspired automotive accidents if we, in fact, sell pizza as well. Okay. Yeah. Logic's is sound. So I still think it's the microwave pizza lobby on that one. But we went to that one, and it was just, you could tell that they were actually equipped to serve food in a timely manner. They had a good menu, like their burgers were on point. But the best part is we roll in, and we're standing there in front of the bar, and I'm looking at the mirror, and I see the unmistakable Simon Butler over in the corner, right? So I'm like, you know what? I just don't need anything to eat or drink. More importantly, than I need to go see Simon. So went over and sat down, started talking to him, and like 8 hours later, we left. I mean, it was great because he had a new. He's like a. I don't know, kind of like a James Bond, where he's always got a new nemesis that's built some secret lair to take him down with.
Who's the new Bond villain this week?
And he goes, "Oh, it's Bagley this time." I'm like, "Bagley? What did Bagley do to you?" And let's find out. And it goes from there. It was great. I know we were talking about all the people that like, oh, so-and-so walks through the door, there'll be trouble.
Yeah.
And they didn't walk through the door. It was just a great time.
No, most of the
picture. Good time though.
So then we went to the train station, picked AD up. He got the train up from Cambridge this time, and made it about 15 minutes quicker than he would have if he'd driven, due to train issues. But instead of staying at the normal hotel this time, I can't remember if we mentioned this before, but it was going to be over 300 quid for the 2 nights, and normally it's about half of that. Even though it's gone up, steadily year on year, you don't mind that. You kind of expect that, but it pretty much doubled from what I paid last time. So AD found us a lovely Airbnb instead, so we had an end terrace house to ourselves. So that was good. The expo itself, it was great. It was fucking warm. I mean, it was a reasonably warm day in Southport, in Blackpool anyway. But inside the vendors hall was just ridiculously hot. Just the whole expo was hot on the Saturday. A bit cooler on the Sunday, but I think just because there were slightly fewer people rather than the temperature drop. But vendors hall was full. I don't think I bought anything, but I didn't really go with that intention anyway. Played a ton of arcade games, played some of the pinballs, played one that not played before. There was an Iron Maiden. Not played that before. Still like the Munsters, the new Munsters that came out a few years ago. That's pretty good. And it seemed to be set up better than it was the last time I played it. So had quite a few goes on that. Just tons of machines. We played some of the 4-player Sega Hot Rod again. And drank beer and ate food, and the Sunday went back to the expo on the Sunday. I think I spent about 7.5 hours talking to Chris Wilkins. Bumped into him like about 20 minutes after I got in there, and then like 6:30 we're heading home, and it was like, see you, Chris, bye. Just sat
I mean, that was pretty much it, wasn't it? Like, yeah. I know what my sort of routine that developed Saturday was, because it was pretty warm and pretty crowded in there, but go in, play a game for about 15 minutes, go back out, get a Diet Coke, sit down, and then one of our boys or somebody we know is going to be along inside of a couple of minutes. So pretty much Saturday was all, listeners and Butler and all, that kind of folks. And then Sunday was pretty much all hanging out with the listeners, which we had quite a few listeners show up. Just had a great time with them. Great. Just Saber and I think spent like an hour and a half just bullshitting back and forth with Butler there about geopolitics and everything, and just had a great time. And then Gareth and everybody else, just a great time with those guys. But yeah, Sunday was pretty much hanging out with those guys again, and then Wilkins, and we solved all the world's problems. It was great. Yeah. But funny enough, here I was just reading the chat, and let's see here. It was Comby there said, "I've got a new bike on order, a bicycle." Surly ogre. I thought he was referring to me. I'm like, because I was bagging on Random for buying a bicycle. I'm like, oh, surly ogre. Well, say what you will, but I'm riding a motorcycle. Is that a brand of motorcycle? Always wanted a surly. I want to get a t-shirt just says surly ogre right there.
Yeah. I'll stay away from him. So then, Monday back, hung out at my place. We only had a day. Scott was leaving on the Tuesday, so we went over to the to Spinner's Mill near me. Went into the computer museum, spent a couple of hours there. Joe was good enough to, because I told him we were going in. It's not normally open on Monday and Tuesdays. He was good enough to fire all the machines up for us, so we went in, spent some time in the museum, chatted with him for a couple of hours, had a drink with him, coffee with him, and Scott got to see the museum and the building.
Yeah, great time there. Shame we couldn't get into the central part of it. But it was solid. I mean, the thing about the museum, if you live in the UK, it's not that far of a trip from wherever the hell you are. Go over, Northwest Computer Museum. Go give them a visit. Yes, Michael is a well-respected volunteer there, so you'll be able to catch up with him if you time your visit right. Mm-hmm. But just a great place. They have like working stock of most things that you would want in numbers. So, like, for example, they have an educational area, and it's set up very much like a computer room would have been set up in like 85. There's what? Mike, was that about a dozen?
10.
So like 5 on one side, 5 on the other. Mm-hmm. They had the documentation, and Joe was telling us all about how they bring students in there, and they walk them through like kind of like a classroom experience of programming in the 80s. They had like the butcher board set up with the a basic program on it, so they clearly bring the kids in and bring them go to the command line, which is also the development environment, and start putting together a program in BASIC, and it's just cool to see that. They had a variety of exhibits, like they had a huge slide projector thing that was just random. They have a satellite ground station there that something, a project of mine. I may even do a hardware flash. I may have already done a hardware flashback on it. Who knows? But it's they have one of those operating. They've got and everything is very accessible. There's very few things in like display cases or locked up. Pretty much everything is turned on and available for the public to actually interact with. And that is, I mean, we're coming to not the end of that being possible, because there were, thousands and thousands and thousands of most of these things produced. But we're at the tail end of, I think, most organizations making that possible. So it's a great visit. Interesting building, interesting space. But I would say, plan a trip, get over there. If you're not in the UK, if you're over in England for any reason, plan a trip, go see the museum. It's a great place. And they have a lot of interesting stock too, like not just the exhibits, but they actually have like a little maker space, but stuff that you can't already get on Amazon. But it's good to see that kind of stuff, hobbyist gear, actually just in the wild. So, and Joe, again, super nice, very gracious, gave us a great tour, and then kicked us the hell out. So, good time. And then, we did go over to the Coal Museum, which has a massive steam engine that's been reconditioned, put in operation. And they also weren't particularly open on that day.
No.
But the fellow running it came over and he talked to us, for about a minute, and he was like, "You guys know what the hell you're looking at. Just go play." And I mean, it was great. I mean, he just turned us loose, and so we had a great run of the place. So exceptionally nice guy. If you happen to be in Manchester and you go by the coal mine, say hello. And it's a great museum, all kinds of stuff. So, it was a good trip. And we're, of course, I think next year again we got Blackpool is kind of a must do. So I for certain will be there. I expect Random 80 and everybody else. It would be nice if we, knowing a year out, if we really jumped on this and got, the most listeners, there as we could, and just really, really had a good experience. Next year we're doing a booth again. So it'll be a good time. It'll be definitely a good time. So we still have to decide on the US Expo. There's a couple of vintage computer ones I'm looking at, but we'll circle up on that. We'll have a plan. So you'll see us in the US and you'll see us in the UK.
Indeed. So we'll jump onto the news items in a minute. We've been going an hour, not done a news item yet. I've got a bit of show and tell, but just before I do, like Scott says, we'll do a booth at Blackpool next year. We were spitballing ideas what to do in the booth. The booth has been largely unchanged for quite a while now. What do you want to see in the booth? What can we do in the booth that will contribute something to the expo? You can hang out with us for a while in the booth and, come and have a sit down, a chat with us or whatever. What can we do in the booth? It's entitle your email, what we can do in the booth.
I think we take a bank of lockers and then you listeners, genuine listeners, as long as they can prove they're a listener through some like special phrase, they get to take a key to a locker and they can use it as storage to dump their stuff legitimately throughout the weekend. Not in the way that Septic used to just dump his stuff in the booth, no, but a proper official way. And have have the sort of the listener lounge where they can sit back and chat, shoot the shit with us and play some Atari games with us or whatever. But then, it'd be quite interesting to be able to offer something I suppose you probably don't get that much space really at Blackpool, do you? Without spending vast amounts of money to have some sort of useful facilities like that we can offer to listeners.
No, I think the first year, I'm sure we've had a couch there in the past. But
we've definitely had couches, whether blow up or stolen.
Yeah. You wouldn't steal a couch from the Norbreck, Jesus.
That's where you go to dump them.
Yeah. So, right, little bit of show and tell. So, I discovered a new website. You may already know about it. Temu.com. Temu.com. And it's a bit like an AliExpress. It's Chinese. It's got better delivery time. But there's just so much random shit on there that's just so cheap. And it's like, yeah, you're going to sacrifice a bit of quality. But if you just want a gizmo that's cheap and you don't mind waiting a week or 10 days to get it, then there is just so much stuff on there. And it's like, drunken shopping on that site is dangerous. So I bought a couple of things. I bought a USB-C to micro SD and SD and normal USB adapter. I bought a couple of them, one for my phone and one for the MacBook. I do have a proper one for the MacBook, but I don't always carry it around with me. So this one is small enough to just chuck in a bag. So I bought a couple of them and tested them and they worked. I bought a little card game. Let me change the camera because I've got another show and tell to come here as well. So I bought this, a little card game, and I thought initially, there were some cards missing. I thought, oh, here we go. That's why it's so cheap. But then I recounted them, read the instructions, and the instructions are wrong. All the cards are in there, but the instructions are wrong. So it's like, that is a legitimate game, but it's not an official one. They've kind of copied it. And I don't know if they've put like that mark on the letter L there so it doesn't look like an L, so they've not copied the trademark or something stupid like that. But everything's there, but the instructions are wrong. So, you pay your money, you take your chances, I guess. And then we interviewed Craig Turner, or I interviewed Craig Turner a few months ago on the show about his book. It was about to launch on Kickstarter. It launched, it was funded, and it dropped through my letterbox, and there it is. I've taken it does come with a sleeve. I've taken the sleeve off just to make it easier to show you. It's called Game Not Over, Unearthing the Rare, Obscure and Concept Systems from Retro Gaming History. And it's got some lovely, knocking the microphone there, some lovely tassels in, so, you can bookmark different pages and stuff. It's got 4 of those in. I've not seen a book with those in for years. I'll just give you a quick flick through some of the pages. Information on the games, some write-ups on the games. Let me find a page with a system on for you. There's a system, the Phantom. That's all
yeah.
There you go. So, lots of information, lots of consoles for you to gen up on.
Is there a favorite in there?
Says in the book. I haven't had a chance to read it all yet, but this is one I do like. The GameCube, what's it called? The metal one with the actual DVD drive in it. What's it
Panasonic
called?
Q.
That's it, the Panasonic Q.
Is our favorite console in there?
I always the Chameleon.
Or retro VGS or whatever you want to call it.
No.
SNES and a Jag.
There's no vaporware.
Junior.
There's the Vectrex for you. So you get the idea of the book. It will still be available for purchase. I think the Kickstarter ones are still going out, but at some point you will be able to pick it up. And I would recommend it. It is a good book. I've just had a quick flick through, but I will sit down and give it a full read properly at some point. And that is my show and tell, and we should now get on to some news items, I think.
Probably should. I didn't mention I did come home with 2 things from Blackpool.
Chlamydia.
Well, not quite, but yeah, an N64. Well, I think it's only N64, but a copy of Aero Gauge for the N64, and then some horrific fucking nerd cold. I managed to pick up.
Mine kicked in a couple of days later. I had a bit of a chest, like a sore throat and cough, leading up to it that I'd had a couple of weeks, and it just came back with a vengeance a couple of days later.
Yeah, I'd had something prior to that, and then it was something else that I got there, and it was just horrible. And there's still a bit floating around my chest, being a dick. But it's like I never felt terrible with it, like in terms of like I could still go around and do my stuff, but it was just. Like one day my throat would just be really swollen and annoying. One day my nose would just be running really annoying. The next day, like, be back to my throat, and then it'd be like coughing all day for no reason. And it's just like, oh, for fuck's sake, it was just very annoying.
Yeah.
But so that was fun.
So first news item then. David Gyrick sent this in. All Dreamcast games ranked, and it is a site hard-drive.net, and they played every single Dreamcast game and ranked them. They said. I don't know how good a job they did of playing them, but they did a terrible job of ranking them because I disagree with it completely. So I put in the second one there is I've made the list easier for you to read so you don't have to scroll and click. So it's all there so you can go right down to the beginning. Their favourite Dreamcast game is Jet Grind Radio.
Yes, well,
what?
It's not the best, but it's definitely up there.
It's good, but it's not the best. Power Stone 2. At number 7, I don't get that. So I had a look for a couple of games. You can search the page. F355 is number 74, I think it was, which is just crazy. Any others you want to look for?
I don't know. Yeah, I'm just skimming through it. Most of it.
Choo Choo
Rocket. I'll say goodbye.
Number 33. They ballsed up the numbering as well. There's a 33 and a 33B. So that isn't my mistake. I've copied their mistake.
Yeah, I'd probably have Choo Choo Rocket higher.
Yeah. No,
But for me, it's reasonably. Maybe Silent Scope a bit higher.
House of the Dead 2, number 52. I think that should be higher. Oh, have they put Typing of
probably.
the Dead in? Let's have a look. Number 39? No way, that should be higher. I always play that at the museum. They've got that set up. It's fantastic.
Where's Joe? I've not seen James and Watch on the list.
No, no. Toothcracker should be on there.
Like you said, it's a shit list.
Yeah, I did. But
Up
anyway,
next, I've got another shit list.
Let's not blame David for that.
So, got one here by David Gyrich. I want to make sure I'm giving credit where credit. No, it's Andrew. I had two open. Andrew Costin sent this one, and it says the best and worst things about retro gaming. And it's Den of Geek. The best things isn't terribly all that bad. I mean, they give love to a variety of the arcade game era. They acknowledge that sort of golden era. They talk about dedicated gaming PCs, proper handhelds like the Game Boy. They go into a lot of the positive things, right? And then they try, the lack of cinematics. So, it's not like you're going to sit down and watch a movie that you occasionally hammer the triangle button. But then their 15 worst things about gaming, it's definitely written by somebody who wasn't there or somebody that doesn't get the why. So here is Den of Geek's 15 worst things about retro gaming and why I generally disagree. Frequent ports of bad games. Well, yeah, but here's the thing. Let's say that at one time you had the IBM PC, the Commodore 64, the Apple II, and the Atom out. Okay, so you're going to release a game for a popular movie. And they look at the install base, and they say, well, there's a lot of the Apple IIs out there, okay? So they made the game for Apple II. Well, on the Commodore 64, you had the SID chip. You had those, incredible color graphics. On the Apple, you get a beeper and a green screen. Now, I played a lot of great games on the Apple. I'm not, running the Apple down. But, if you're going to port it to a system with a user base that is literally a generation or two behind because it was the first generation or two of computers and the formulas were far from standardized at that point. It wasn't just Apple or Mac with the exact same hardware. It was a whole different world. Very few good ways to tell how good a game was. Well, I'll give them a yes and no on that because, yeah, the video game crash did happen because there's so much shit games people bought. But if you asked around and asked your friends and all, you could get a pretty good idea. Region locked and region limited releases. That was crap, and as far as I know, still goes on, and I'm not a fan of it. But not unique to retro gaming. Stealth sections, escort missions, and other forced gameplay mechanics. Forced gameplay mechanics is a fundamental part of modern gaming. So, sorry. Absurd hardware prices and software prices. All right, so funny enough, the case they use for this is a Super Nintendo ad. Now, the games are priced, all of them, at $59.99 and $69.99. Okay, that's still literally the exact price of games today. Now, yes, obviously, you made a lot less money. $1 bought a lot more. You got to compare $1987 to $2023. But technology gets cheaper as things come. Pricing comes down. It's not going to be static. I mean, who would have thought that, a terabyte that fits on an SD card would be $89? No. So, no, the prices weren't absurd. The consoles were generally sold at or slightly below break even. So, It is what it is. Inaccessibility to PC gaming. What do you mean? I sat down in front of my Commodore and I play PC games all the time. And they're like, no, that wasn't our point. It was about, yes, no, your point was missed. The cruelties of online gaming. Was it a cruelties? I mean, a lot of, you have BBSs. I was just literally just the other night right there on that machine playing Trade Wars, and it worked beautifully. Just because your console wasn't connected until, I don't know, the internet became widely available doesn't mean much. Cables and wires, yes, that's how things are hooked up. Truly terrible, truly terrible gaming hardware. Like what? I mean, what terrible hardware? Few, if any, patches, updates, and fixes. That's because developers were instructed to deliver bug-free games, and once we lost that, we lost everything. How about finish the game before it ships and understand once it goes out the gate, that's what you've got, so you put your best effort into it and go, oh, we'll fix that when it ships, if it sells well enough. If it doesn't, we're not going to fix a thing. So, no, pass there. Broken and confusing controls. Such as so many loading screens. Yes, because hardware wasn't that fast. You had to load the game from storage into memory. And on something like a Commodore 64 that had a disk drive that moved as fast as technology and design allowed, what were you going to do? Make it load faster, have less data? Idiots. All right. Passwords, memory cards, and trying to save your game. Yeah, because that was the state of technology. It wasn't terrible, it was what it was. Unnecessarily difficult and confusing games, like a series of twists and turns. Not being able to find the game
Space
you really
Invaders. Horrifically confusing, that one.
Yeah.
Not being able to find the game you really want. I know, yesterday I went to 2 different stores and they didn't have the game I wanted.
And it's brand
Unique
new.
in time.
Jesus.
Yeah, so written by a young lad who lives in Brooklyn. So, yeah, whatever.
One sent in by me, which I titled "Who Loves AI," which is the news that Revolution Studios, well, Revolution Software, even in York, England, just up the road from me, makers of the Broken Sword series, are using AI to remaster the first Broken Sword game for modern high-resolution displays. And by the looks of the article, they're not just falling into the trap that a lot of the Japanese RPG, like 16-bit RPG people have been doing, as they've been AI upscaling all of their artwork to do it. They've actually done quite a bit of research, and they've got York University, tried to get them involved in training a model to do it properly and all sorts. So they've been through the mill of trying to get it as good as possible. So hopefully that will turn out quite nicely. But also, partly more interesting to me was it came with the news as well that they're making not version 6, but a 6th game in the series, which obviously will be built from scratch without AI, or will it? Who knows? Yeah, the point and click is still not yet dead.
It's not, and I love them. I've got a couple here. One from David Gyrick, and it is an article about Pokemon. Not just the games, the whole pop culture aspect, the whole business strategy behind Pokemon and how it sort of survives people growing older. They start off with the trading cards maybe, then the video games, and maybe Pokemon Go when they get the cell phone or whatever, and then events and all of that, TV shows and movies. And it's a fairly in-depth article you can read at your leisure. And then a couple here, this might be catching. So Random Dave sent one in, an ex-Microsoft staffer opening a retro gaming club in Felixstowe in the UK. And then just the other day, David Gyrick sent this one in, literally a couple of days ago, I think. Team 17 co-founder Martin Brown is also opening a new arcade in the UK. It will be located in the West Yorkshire town of Horbury in Wakefield, which is not too far from us, Random.
Nope.
It will include classic machines such as Missile Command Battlezone, Pac-Man Asteroids, blah, 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 and many more. There will also reportedly be regular high-score competitions at the venue. So he hopes to open the doors very soon. So we will keep an eye out for that. Might be worth a little road trip.
Brown.
We know Martin.
In fact, yeah, it's probably very close to me, isn't it? Because it's going to be near the sculpture park, which never seems like that far a drive.
No, it's not.
So Michael, I just remembered the thing I was looking at because it's sitting there looking at me.
Mm-hmm.
Just to circle back and cover that. So, about 2 years ago or so, 2.5 years ago, I got this device from Texelec. It was a completed version of something that I had built from components, and it's basically you got a Raspberry Pi W driving a CPLD, which samples the red, green, blue, and sync coming out of a CGA.
Mm-hmm.
So it works with a huge variety of computers, Commodores, Apples, Amigas, you name it, pretty much anything that outputs an RGB. And in this case, it's the one that I use as my main RGB, CGA computer converter. So my primary BBSing computer, my Tandy 1000HX, is hooked up through this thing, and then it's HDMI and a bunch of other HDMIs, like from the C64 and other devices, go into a HDMI switch, and then the sound gets pulled off and sent to a Tandy MMS10 amplified speaker set. So it's a neat setup. It just works. I can turn on the Amiga, I can turn on the Commodore, and it comes up. But the conversion is great. It's not perfect though. There's a little flickering, a little because what it does is it takes a snapshot of that data stream and then builds a bitmap. So especially if you sit there with a static image, it will slowly kind of degrade in quality, and then you end up with kind of a little bit of an earthquakey kind of effect. Some things are worse than others. It's certainly livable. It's not the worst ever. And then I got to thinking, God, I haven't updated the firmware on any of those in some time. So it had gone from like version 8 to version 60. So, well, a lot of these things, they get it working and that's the end of it. They don't maintain it really because it might not need maintenance. Or they might have lost interest in the project and nobody's going to be doing it. So anyway, I updated my firmware to beta 60. And it cleaned up a lot of the little artifacts and undesirable weird behavior. The picture is just crisper, more stable. It's really good. But I mean, it was functional before. It's even more functional now. So, if you need to you want to hook up like a PCXT class computer to like a 32-inch, modern 4K monitor, this is your gadget. So, Texelec sells them already built. You can also buy the CPLD hats and the pies and build them yourself. There's, I like the Texelec board because it's got like a heavy base that sits there, and it's not just a board on the end of cables that weigh more than it and just flies around. So solid piece of hardware. So next, I guess, news item here. And this is one I brought up before, and it was submitted by David Geirich, so we'll just hit it again real quick. And it's a YouTube video by a guy named Modern Vintage Gamer. And it says, I dumped and preserved an unreleased Xbox game. So he had the original Xbox, the Xbox One, as some would call it. And it was sent to him by a listener and said, I think these games might be unreleased. And they were. So he was able to extract the game code and preserve it and have it available for others. So as it turns out, Modern Vintage Gamer was one of the masterminds behind really, I wouldn't say the whole emulation scene, but a lot of the emulation scene of the 90s and early 2000s, which was really when a lot of the amazing stuff happened. So, great guy, great channel, and a great video. Thank you, David, for that. And I'll just give that another recommendation.
I found a GameCube game that nobody has ever played.
That was the one I was just looking at.
Yeah, I wasn't quick enough on the mute button, but it fitted in, so I let it play.
Speaking of prototype games.
Yeah, do it. Go
on. Yeah, this is an article on Nintendo Life about a guy called @Cake Hoarder on Shitter, I'm going to call it, because that's what XITTER is pronounced like. And it's a GameCube game that's been discovered. And it's a game about monkeys riding unicycles, developed by Santa Cruz Games. He reckons there's 12 levels on the disc, split between 2 different worlds, but it's a little bit unstable, so he's only got the first world to work. But yeah, that's a new game demo there that's out. He's planning on dumping the ROM, so you can have a fiddle with it if you like to. If you like bright-coloured platform games with monkeys and unicycles, which I think I probably do.
And why not? Do you remember that game we saw in the Expo, Scott? I meant to read up on it when I got home, and I've just remembered about it now. The motorbike one. It was like a 90s Sega one.
Oh, I would say that was more close to present day. The Namco one, right? The ride-on superbikes.
Oh no! At the Expo, there was a Sega motorbike one.
Let's talk about both.
Yeah.
So while we're trying to remember the one at the Expo, because there's another game I want to talk about too, and that's Hot Rod. But part of Mike's and I just running around his neighborhood there is we went over to the Trafford for dinner, and they have a decent Namco arcade in there. And man, did they have some good stuff. But they had a Namco VR motorcycle game. Now, it had conventional displays that you could look at, but it definitely was even better with the VR. The VR, right? So, pretty much you'd put the VR headset on, and it was great because they did a lot of neat things that were by no means original, but they were well implemented. Like if you think of the pinball game Whirlwind, it's got a fan, and it's a tornado themed game, right? So the fan turns on at certain points. This was very very well done. It just the sound was well done. The way the video moved with the bike was, it didn't seem alien. You weren't fighting the environment for a sense of perspective. Even that little fan just kicked in kind of speed proportionate. So whoever, designed this, it was still just obviously a game, but it was really, really neat. So Mike and I were just, whipping around the track there, chasing after each other. And we'd come up to a corner, and I'd see him leaning in on me. So I was actually trying to kick him for real. He was next to me, and we were just having a great time with it, man. So then we saw both at the arcade and at the arcade place we went to.
Arcade Club.
Arcade Club, thank you. Mm-hmm. I was thinking it's a kind of like arcade club, but so yeah, it was an arcade club, and we played Hot Rod there, and of course Mike discovered it as they were turning out the lights. Oh, look, this is the game I was telling you all about, as they're shutting off lights around us. So we played the piss out of that for a bit, and then they had it over at the Expo. It was basically kind of like Sprint, where you've got 4 different color cars. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like if you think of the Iron Man Mike Stewart game Off-Road, where they move at a seemingly unreasonably slow pace, but the way they bounce around and do things, it's actually a pace that makes the game work. So even though it seems to run really slow, It's fun. And then you have like, upgrades that you buy for your car, kind of like RC Pro-Am. So imagine Ivan Mike Stewart's, off-road meets RC Pro-Am. But we played the crap out of that one. And then there was the other motorcycle game, Michael. Did you find it?
No. I've been
looking for
Moto
Race USA.
Let's have a look at that. I've just resorted to searching for Play Blackpool Arcade 2023 and seeing if someone caught it on picture. What did you say?
Moto Race USA.
Moto Race USA.
When I first googled rare Sega arcade motorcycle game, the first thing it comes up with is, hang on, is an arcade racing game. I'm like, that is not rare. Fuck off.
Google Images doesn't have much on it. Let's have a look. Is it on KLOV? Chat amongst yourselves, listeners.
What did it look? Well, what did it look? I'll do another news. We've got David Gyrick and an article on Time Extension. Taito is working with M2, good, to create perfect Night Striker home ports. So yeah, this is port of the 2D scaling sort of Afterburner Space Harrier style game from Taito, and they say where it's coming or when it's coming. This will be included in Arcade Memories Volume 2 for the eGrit 2 mini micro console. Further ports will be announced in due course. And always was tempted to get that Taito eGrit micro arcade machine, but it's just a bit too expensive, really. But it might be interesting keeping an eye on any decent ports coming of this, because I'd imagine at the time
it doesn't
probably
look
PlayStation
a bad game,
Saturn era.
Don't look
PlayStation Saturn era ports of it probably wouldn't have been that great. I mean, obviously you could just emulate it somehow. I guess.
No, it wasn't that game. It was
Right.
a motorbike you sat on. It was kind of graphically. It was
Okay.
similar to. What did we say it was similar to? Like a Crazy Taxi, graphic-wise, something like that, I think.
All right, so a step up from Manx TT, which
Yeah.
I thought that was the last Sega arcade motorbike game they did, but maybe not.
I could maybe find it and dig it out, but let's get on with some more news.
Let's do just that, and I've got one here by a guy that sent us news, if you can imagine that. So, from Lord Neil Ballmer, here is a reasonably informative and entertaining video from Slopes about the history of game console emulation. So, since, emulation seems topical to this news, and we brought it up, it's about a 20-minute video. Nothing in there you don't maybe already know. There's no secrets and all. But what it is, it's well presented. It's got a whole lot of backing material, like logos, video clips, little clips of interviews, website captures. So he definitely spent a lot of time in probably only maybe a quarter of it is his mug in front of the camera. The rest of it is all supporting videos of what he's talking about. And it's pretty well done. So Slopes Game Room and Game Companies versus Emulation. So it's just a good, if somebody was unfamiliar with the topic, this looks like a pretty good video to say, hey, here's the deal. So credit where credit is due.
One from David Gyrick about a new GameCube prototype game. Did you do that one, Random?
And we did that one.
Pickles,
that was the one that you had the audio. Yeah,
that's the one. And we are clearly entering book season in time for Christmas, because David Gyrick has got another one, a book on the Sega SG-1000, which is something I don't know a huge amount about. I've played some of its games. But it's your typical book of this kind, hardback, and pictures, well-taken pictures of the systems, and text about same. So expect some books for Christmas if you've got a retro buying person. I've got mine here.
So got one here from Gareth Hamer. And it says Arcade Classic is getting a remake on Switch and PC. And they are redoing Snow Brothers 2. Now, you know what? Snow Brothers is one of those games that I never saw in person in the arcades back in the day. And I never saw it in, like, anywhere. It just wasn't a game that, it was one that you knew of. You heard the name. And anything Brothers, you're going to automatically compare it to Mario. So I just subconsciously, you kind of thought, oh, it must be a Mario knockoff or something. And then even when I got MAME back in, 96, 97, and through all the iterations of MAME, like Snow Brothers and Snow Brothers 2 is always a game that's in there. And I always say to myself, I've never played that. Then, like, I go and play it. I'm like, oh, that's what that is. Then, like, 5 years later, I forget that I ever went and played it again. So, never a game that's been, like, a huge appeal to me. But it's always kind of there. So, it'll be interesting to see what that does. So, that is it for Snow Brothers 2 re-release.
Yeah, I think I've only ever seen it running on a Game Boy. Someone at school had it. Something else I've not ever seen another one from David Gyrick, who I think is going to win this month's submissions award. This is the Super Akan resurfaces, and I thought I was having a bit of a stroke when I first started reading the title, which was fancy owning the rare Taiwanese Flop Super A' Can. I was like, what? Here's your chance. And it kind of looks a bit like a Super Nintendo that's dark grey. Sort of actually maybe a blend between a Super Graphics, but with sort of Super Nintendo button and cartridge slot layout. Yeah, if you've never heard of it, most people haven't. Released in 1995, just as the Saturn and PlayStation were finding their feet. It was a commercial dud that left its maker Funtech in dire financial straits. What is it? It's based on a Motorola 68000, 12 confirmed games in the library, and is italics incredibly rare today. So yeah, looks like it's got sort of Bomberman-like stuff, some other weird stuff. Interesting. 12 games. That would fill a top 10.
A Monopoly. It would. Yeah.
If that's emulatable, we can spend a month playing those and come to a decision sometime.
Well, it's got a 68,000 in it. It must be emulatable.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's comparable specs to the
Genesis and Amiga, really.
To the Genesis, yeah. I mean, it's spot on. So.
Mm-hmm. Another from David Garrick. Dynamic Tracer has been translated. And I love the tagline in the email. Dynamic Tracer, English. This is a blog. It's like, okay, that's someone's used auto-translate for that. What was it? Oh, we did in the booth. Oh, yeah. In the booth, when people were walking past the booth, they didn't know what it was, so I made a sign that says it's a podcast.
I thought you were going to say the thing we did with Saberman, where we got it to write literature about the Coleco chameleon.
Oh, yeah, we got AI to write a paragraph. Well, we said a book, and it said I can't do a book, so a short story about the Coleco chameleon.
And then, I mean, it's like somebody just took, Google and then put it in a bucket, shook it up, laid out the pages, and read it.
That's AI.
Which basically will be what people use as their primary source of information in the near future.
Yeah.
And we get dumber and dumber and dumber, and eventually get hit by a comet. So until that point happens, got one here from David Gyrich. Ultima Underworld PSX English. So after 27 years of being inaccessible to the West, the PSX port of Ultima Underworld has now received a release. So if you've been waiting 27 years to get Ultima Underworld PSX, it's now available.
So I mentioned this in the top 10, I think. Well, I don't think. I know because I edited it today. Ian Lee's Random Access Memories podcast. It's about 3 episodes in now. There is some talk of games, but it's mainly just him chatting with guests about random stuff and some video game stuff in there. So if you don't know who Ian Lee is, shame on you, but he is a UK TV and radio personality, star, whatever you want to say. He did a series called Thumb Candy years ago. He was in AD's video for the British IBM as well. And you generally see him knocking about expos every now and then as well. And you can check out his new podcast.
But it's not as good as ours.
Nowhere near as good as ours.
Ours not only at Blackpool, where there are a flurry of people selling tabletop caveman games off the back of our top 10 tabletop games. Mike James has sent in an article that I also saw recently and forgot to submit about a new hardback book, which is all about tabletop electronic games, which seems to be on Kick Track. That's the Kick Track. But yeah, they've made their goal. Where is it actually just on Kickstarter? Do they just?
Yeah, Kick Track gives you like an RSS feed for Kickstarters.
Yeah, but they don't do it. It's not an Indiegogo or anything silly like that.
No. Okay,
but yeah, it's a book all about the tabletop electronic games. So yeah, clearly, this success is because of our podcast.
Absolutely.
We should.
I couldn't agree more.
Some lead, others follow. And they were exhibiting, weren't they, at Blackpool as well?
Oh, was that them?
Yeah.
The big wall of...
The big wall of tabletop games, yeah. Next to the 3-quarter arcade machines.
And I tell you what, that they brought out pretty much the whole collection of those quarter scale...
quarter, not
Dragons Lair, Pac-Man,
Yeah.
The thing is, they're well built. They look good. If that was your collecting space, like if you weren't inclined to have all sorts of full-size arcade games just stacked up around you, I could see that being a reasonable recourse. The games play well. The controls are better than they should be. And the price for the thing is reasonable. Other than just buying one to say I own one, I don't really have any use for it. But I do think they're a great product. I think it's something that would serve somebody well that had maybe that was their gaming space. That's what they had space, for. So, another great one here from David Gyrich, The Making of FIFA. FIFA International Soccer, the game that launched 1 billion, and I assume they mean dumpster filling one play game. So yeah, so let's take soccer. Let's make a game of it. Let's sell a new one every year that people play once, and then it ends up in the dumpsters for $1 at expos a year later. So definitely supported by the waste processing industry, the Plastics Recycling Coalition, and dumpster bin providers everywhere.
Yeah. Neil Barmer, Lord Neil Barmer, a peer of the realm, is in chat. And he said, remember when there were prize alarms? That seemed like fun. I'd forgotten all about that.
We should do that. Let's get something together on that.
We do have
unfortunately, we kept sort of not being able to announce terribly timely in advance. So not many people managed to make it to news, and then so it wasn't worth doing a prize alarm for one person.
Yeah. Well, here,
David Gyrich
in chat there is the link to the prizes. Let me pull up the prize alarm. What should we have? What should we have this month? Let me see.
Hit it.
While you're looking for
We'll
that,
have that.
David.
So when you hear this,
hit it.
That is the phrase that pays. You have to type "hit it" in the chat window, and the first person to do it can win a prize off that page. So keep your ears peeled. And thank you for reminding me, Lord Neil Barmer.
So yeah, David Garrick also sent in the tabletop gaming book Kickstarter link, and right after that, sent in literally 5 minutes later, sent in one about another video game history book, which is at Lost in Cult, which is called The Console Chronicles. It's an unofficial celebration of every system that you hold dear will travel back in time to when the NES felt like an impossibility, pondering the beginnings of this new artistic frontier, which is all a lot of way to say we've got like the NES and the PlayStation and the Xbox and in between.
Although they have got the Odyssey on the background of the
yeah,
page.
and they've got the and they've got the Atari VCS, the real VCS,
the real one. Yeah.
So yeah, perhaps it's fairly comprehensive.
I think we've hit a
I've never
stage
really
where
looked at
you have to choose which books you want because you can't buy them all, and a lot of the information is duplicated. So you've really got to shop around and pick one, I think, or two, or three.
Speaking of shopping around, got one here from Alan Hegedus, and wow, this rare Nintendo 64 controller is set to sell for around $1,000 or pounds. And he says here, I've never heard of this controller before. It does have an interesting look. Worth $1,000? We'll find out. We might find out that somebody will pay $1,000 for it. But what it is, it's a Nintendo N64 controller that looks like it's been hydro dipped with like a random pattern of randomness. You know, I would actually pay almost $1,000 for an N64 controller that was properly silk screened with random images of random. That would be epic. But
random images.
This is not that. So apparently there could be just under 200 examples of this controller in the world. Well, I'll wait for number 2 to come along then and pay $20.
Yeah. So
I like Rare Hardware.
You could read that both ways. There's only 200 because they were just rare and they wanted them to be valuable and collectible, or they made 200 and thought these are fucking awful. Let's stop it.
Or it's something really rare. If I could run into, like, say, the arcade area at Blackpool and chuck one to every person standing there, whether or not they wanted one, and leave.
No.
There's only one here for each of you. Form a line.
Well, we all know what
they're leaving.
We all know the real trick is you make sure you've got a few different coloured shells for them, and then you intentionally just release 5 to market and keep the rest in your garage, because then you hope that in 10 years' time, suddenly you'll be the one that's uncovered all of these in your garage and can put them on eBay and make masses of money. Someone came up with that idea once. Unfortunately, they never got far enough to make the product. No. Even one of them, let alone
molds.
Yeah, a few of them.
So one here.
So got one here from David Gyrich, and it is in fact the Dance Dance Revolution Classic Mini whatever. So we're about to find out what it is. The video's queuing. Oh, yeah. So you select some Dance Dance Revolution, and it says Mini PV. I don't know what they're selling here.
It's a little arcade console.
It looks like a tabletop.
Yeah, tabletop, sort of like the Sega one that they did, and the Neo Geo and the Taito Egret that I mentioned. So
it looks about the same size as a okay. So they show it laid out. It looks about the same size as a GameCube, doesn't it?
Yeah. So I was kind of really interested when they first announced it because it seemed like it was maybe going to be bigger. But then even if it was bigger, you couldn't really play it, and then it's like, well, you can plug like a full size dance mat into it, but then it's like, well, the screen's fucking tiny. So at
this
what
is
point,
made
like,
for Ben.
other than
this runs Ben OS.
Little Ben's dance machine. Yeah.
This is only made for him.
Yeah.
And the Oompa Loompas. I mean, it's like you're gonna break it. I mean, I don't know. Does it? I'm asking sensible questions. Does it have like IR sensors on each side of the dance pad, so you stand astride the dance pad, carefully not crushing it as it measures you moving around, or are you meant to dance on it with your fingers? What is this thing?
Maybe your fingers. I think it's more just for the people who are hardcore into Konami's Bemani, rhythm stuff, who will spend a hell of a lot of money on controllers and stuff. It's a nice little presentation, knick-knack for them to have. It's not functional.
I was gonna say I'm not even sure it's playable.
It's as much use as those mini Game Gears that came out that time. So
if they had let's say they had made those pads contactable, and you literally did it with your fingers, they could have done something. I've
literally got a PlayStation controller that's a miniature dance pad. That's basically that. It's like 4 buttons, and that you sort of play it with your fingers. And I just picked it up as a novelty when I saw it for like £1.50 somewhere. And for a laugh, I was making a dancing rhythm game at Sumo once. And so just to annoy everyone, I used to plug it in with a USB adapter to my PC, and then only play the game with the actual little mini dance pad.
But so it looks like it is playable because they show a full-size dance mat plugged into it, and then they show
it does hook up to HDMI.
Yeah, okay. And then they show the little the bars that you would brace yourself on if you were like, say, Ben's sized. It shows those lift up, and underneath it is arrows that I guess you would hold them as handheld controllers. Yeah.
I thought and you can also plug a full size one. I didn't realize it was like then had HDMI TV out as well, because I was thinking like, yes, great. So I'm on a real dance mat, but this screen on this thing's tiny. Okay, maybe okay. But then, wow, just buy a. Well, I don't know what it's like elsewhere, but the UK certainly, for a while, you could just get the arcade dance mats quite cheaply.
I gave 3 away in the Lucky Dip.
Oh, not the floppy ones.
Oh, right.
I'm talking like proper hard plastic ones.
All right.
Yeah, it's just getting people to ship them that was always the struggle. But yeah, it's more these days. It's more about having the space, I guess. Depending on the latency on the TV out as well, like plugging a PlayStation or a PlayStation 2 into a flat panel is a bit of a rough time for rhythm games in terms of latency. But then I guess if you're going that far, you're probably going to spend £100 on a reasonable upscaler. So, I don't know. Someone will buy it,
Microsoft, yeah, it wouldn't be for me. Random here submitted one that Microsoft has apparently put a load screen game in while you're installing Windows. This will give you something to play. So, yeah, sure. Okay.
That wasn't the one I thought you were doing, the one above that from Microsoft, where they'd opened up their Bing AI image generation, and people had started making images of Kirby doing 9/11. That was quite amusing. What was the load? Oh, the load screen game. Yeah, so while you're installing Windows, you can play this like weird surfing game that's a bit like the Ski Free game, I guess, but with surf dogs. What Why wouldn't you want surf dogs?
So,
one sharks at the surf dogs event.
One here from Andrew Hannay, who wasn't at Blackpool this time around. We were banging on about how we all hate Myst and it's one of the worst games in the world ever. And he took such offence to that. He felt...
Did we say that, or did we just say it wasn't really a game?
Yeah, I think it was a playable slideshow sort of thing, but yeah. None of us liked it anyway. And he said, okay, so you don't like Myst. What about the Room series of games then? I've never played any of the Room series of games. Have you, Random?
I've not. Back when iPhone and iPads, like gaming was starting to be real big, there was always people talking about the Room games, and I was meant to check them out, and I never did. But is that one where like the screen's just black? You put headphones on and you can't see anything essentially, and you're just wandering around essentially in the dark, listening, just navigating by audio or something.
I don't know, to be honest. What did I play? I should be able to find it here. I think I've still got it. What was it? It was set in like a creepy old house in the dark, and
here we go. Developed by Fireproof Games. First game, The Room, was released in 2012 for iPhone, with an Android version coming a bit later the next year. You've got a series of strange puzzle boxes, typically hiding a number of mechanisms within it. The goal is for players to, by manipulating the box through touch and rotation, access all the mechanisms, thereby unlocking further mechanisms in the box and ultimately solving the box itself. Sounds all right, actually. It's not the case. It's not the one that I was thinking it was with the. What was that? It was like mostly sound based, and yeah, don't know.
Got one here from Gareth Hamer, and he said, "Who let these gobshites into the retro scene?" All right, so it's a link to an article on The Sun, and then they note the UK edition. And it lists the 10 rarest games, right? And I think the failure here, I mean, it's a general light read for somebody that had a Nintendo that hasn't seen it since, they moved out of home and has no connection to it since then, And, I remember those. I mean, that's the kind of casual read it is. But it's kind of a list of games that, yes, okay, one of them that was in a box, vacuum packed, perfectly sealed, unshipped, sold for once, right? And they kind of, it kind of sounds like, oh, if I've got one of these, it's someone's gonna say, yeah, I've got one of these sitting in the closet. Imagine how many people are gonna call their parents. Mom, Dad, do we still have those Nintendo games in the attic? They're worth $30 million because there's 30 of them. And it's like Super Mario Brothers, 1.6 million. Super Mario 64, 1.29 million. Legend of Zelda, 725,000. Sonic the Hedgehog, 350,000. Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, 260,000. Blah, blah, blah. And meanwhile, there's, every collection has one of the Contra, 125,000, right? Well, yeah, so everybody has probably each of these games in their collection. I think I know I have every one of these over on my shelf. It doesn't mean they're worth more than about $30.
Yeah, I think I've got some of these in the Lucky Dip. You can buy them for £1 at an expo.
And turn around and sell them for $1 million.
Yeah, $1 million.
We're going to make some listener very rich.
We're going to make it rain. One here from Gareth Hamer, and that game I was thinking of before was called The House Abandoned, and it isn't one of those series. And someone said you were wrong as well, Random. That's not The Room.
Yeah, don't know what it was. I can't remember.
And Andrew, tell us what you mean and what we should be playing, and why they're the best games in the world in 151 words or less. One here from
1 minute 30 audio piece.
Yeah, that's it. Send it as audio, and then I can listen to it and delete it. One from Gareth Hamer. It's called The Legacy of Amstrad, and it is an article about, guess what? It's about Amstrad. At Antstream. Oh, is it a native ad for Antstream as well? It is a long, scrolly article with some pictures and a picture of Alan Sugar and some games, and you can enjoy that at your leisure. I shall mark that and read it later.
Gareth Hamer sent another one in, which was the 15 best ROM hacks of all time that he says it could be another top 10, which is an article on Retro Dodo that doesn't seem to exist anymore. So I can't do any discussion about what they thought were the best, but I've not really played a great deal of ROM hacks other than, what you ended up with on like random multi-carts for the Game Boy, and you'd have or the weird NES clone stuff, and you'd have like, this is Mario but it's purple, and things like that.
Yeah, there were loads for Super Mario World. I had a collection of them.
No, I mean, obviously, we could find ROMs and have a look, but it's not something I've really looked into that much, other than I suppose if you count translation patches to be sort of ROM hacks.
Well, there was a series of, I think, really memorable ROM hacks. Right when Nesticle first came out, right? They actually, as I recall, built into at least a couple of versions of Nesticle, there was a ROM editor. Like, you could go in and bring up the palette and edit the tiles, and it was so easy to do. I really should go grab a DOS copy of Nesticle and stick it on my MMX, my A7. What is the 7? The AMD K7, because that would run Nesticle at 200 megahertz wonderfully. But it was, on like a Pentium class machine, you're running Nesticle, you can emulate all these Nintendo games. It was so cool just to sit there and play Super Mario Brothers, from 10 years ago on this, modern computer. But the ROM edits were so good. There was one where it had FedEx versus UPS, just the delivery companies. So they changed Mario and Luigi into like a FedEx and a UPS truck, and you'd run around and play the game as these trucks. They did one with wheelchair Mario, so they just changed like his lower legs and everything. The tile, they changed it to various like a wheelchair base, so he's like doing the wheels to move forward, and it was just freaking cool, man. Like, it changed. Because at first you think, okay, I get the goof. He's in a wheelchair. He's going to roll. But it kind of changed the gameplay just a little. It was actually an interesting version. But there were some pretty cool ROM hacks for about like a 2-year period there during the early emulator days. I remember there was when Activision released their Atari 2600 ROM pack. Well, it was ROM's emulator all built into one, and people were going in and modifying that, and there was like a little program you would download, and it would generate the ROM hacks and repackage them, and then you would relaunch the Activision. And there was like, I think Kaboom, except he was just throwing turds down. I mean, it was silly stuff, but it was a neat era, man. There was a lot of neat stuff that came out of that. So I think it was a pretty cool thing.
Hit it.
Random, you based on your last chat message, you should watch Primer. Have you seen it? You hear me talk about it before?
I have not.
You should watch it. It's about
no.
It's the whole thing was made for $7,000. It's about 1 hour 20, something like that. It's about time travel. It's a weird film though. It takes a couple of watches to see exactly what's going on with the different timelines, but it's good.
Cool.
And Mike, speaking of which, there was a number of movies that you recommended to me, and I managed to watch, I think, all of them. So I know we moved on from movies and TV, but just to throw it out there for the listeners, the first one that you showed me and then we watched was the Kunk series.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Was the sinking of the Titan 1C a great tragedy? And then the guy is the Titan 1C. Surely you've heard of it. 1912, 100,000 people died. Oh, the Titanic. No, the Titan 1C. It says it right here.
Yeah.
But so I got all of them, which really wasn't. There was like Earth, Britain, Christmas, and then all the little short ones,
Yeah.
But so I got all those. BlackBerry would be of huge interest to our listeners.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think the majority of them. So, I mean, let's face it, if you're a retro gamer, you're probably somewhat of a tech head, and you probably are an early adopter of a lot of, technologies and things. So, it is pretty much the story of how RIM created an entire market segment and then became the butt of the joke of the market segment. Mm-hmm. And there were so many people in that movie I haven't seen in years that came around and did masterpiece roles. For example, Michael Ironsides, who used to be like in every, Starship Troopers, and he was in
V.
Recall, V. Yeah, I mean, he plays like this guy, and you can tell he's way heavier, way older. I didn't know he was still acting, and he comes in there and just kills his role. Also, the main business douche that ended up joining RIM and taking over as CEO and all that. Mm-hmm. That guy was played by Glenn Howerton, who was the brother on that 80s show. And, I have to remember now, that was like 23, 24 years ago that they did that 80s show. I love that show. It got just critically panned and slammed and destroyed. But I watched it before I watched that 70s show. That 70s show is fantastic. That 80s show was just beyond belief. So good, so funny, and almost nobody has seen it because it just disappeared from video history. But I can't say enough good things about it. So anyway, Glenn Howerton, the last time I saw him acting, he was like, 19, 20 years old, with a full curly head, of hair, playing this, character from the mid 80s. And here he is, this older dude with, all bald and shit, like, playing a serious, vicious asshole. And I'm like, God damn, this guy's good. I mean, he was, he was tremendous in his role too, as most of the people in that movie were. Some of the other actors I didn't recognize until I looked up. I'm like, oh yeah, that guy was in like everything. And other people you hadn't heard from in years. But it just couldn't have been done better. BlackBerry, fantastic movie. Mm-hmm. And there was another one, Michael, that you recommended that I also grabbed and watched, and it was good too. So solid recommendations all around.
Well, thank you. So a little while ago, we had a prize alarm, and it was Neil Barmer's idea, but someone pipped him to the post, and that was Richard Smart. So, Richard, if you've not won before, check out the link to the prizes in chat just a little further up and send me an email, ukmike@retrogamingroundup.com, with your name and what prize you would like and your postal address. And at some point between now and the end of time, or that comet that Scott was on about earlier, striking Earth, we will send a prize out to you. So, well done for winning.
As a consolation prize to Neil Barmer, he says, did I do any news this month? I don't remember. Getting lazy. And in fact, he did, because I've got one from Lord Neil Barmer, and he says, it seems that the AI Lara Croft playing her own game is completely fake. And I remember seeing a news headline, but didn't really look at it, about how they'd got an AI running through the sort of the first part of Tomb Raider.
I watched the whole fucking thing. I really enjoyed the video, and I was a bit gutted when I found out it was a fake.
Get caught. It seemed, no, it wasn't. I didn't see the headline. I heard it sort of discussed on the podcast, and I thought it was a bit weird because they were like, "Oh yeah, when she first sees the bats, she's like, oh, it's bats," and then she realizes that like she dies to them. So then like next time she's like, "Oh, bats are bad. I should shoot them," and shoots them and things. But this is the video he sent is a breakdown where they dive into the mysterious realm of Foxmaster's self-aware Lara Croft video. Is it truly the groundbreaking AI masterpiece it claims to be? Or is it really playing Tomb Raider 1 by itself? Or is there more than meets the eye? We've kind of spoiled the thing there, but I think going into it, you'd know that it wouldn't, because it'd be a bit shit if it was just like, yeah, we looked at it. It's definitely real. See you
and
guys.
do I care? Film at 11.
Yeah.
Probably not.
So yeah, check that out to see the deep dive behind it, I guess.
You know, the hysterics behind AI, and I mean, you know, it's one of those things where it's like VR. It's been promised, launched, debuted, retracted, failed, died on the vine, re-promised, relaunched, you know, under-delivered, over-promised, died on the vine, over and over and over and over. And we all know that is what it is. But I think it's evolutionary. I mean, AI it's already a thing. Will it replace all humans overnight? No. Will it replace some humans in some things? Maybe. It's but the fear of its, you know, present and omni-powerful abilities is just a tad overhyped.
Yeah.
Well, we've all seen that documentary, like with Arnold Schwarzenegger in it.
Total Recall.
Yeah. The Running Man.
Lawnmower Man.
Mrs. Doubtfire.
Well, that was a documentary. If you've ever seen, me standing next to 80, it's true. Handsome bastard. Devilishly handsome, that 80.
But not to be trusted.
No, he's a shady shyster. But definitely the best of the human genome. Got one here from Gareth Hamer. I don't think we got it. It's about the Star Wars games.
Not done that.
Not done it,
I think.
Good. Okay. All right. So they're doing a physical. They call it the Heritage Pack, and it'll be out for the Switch. And it has Republic Commando, Jedi Knight Academy, Jedi Knight 2, Star Wars Force something, Knights of the Old Republic, Knights 2, and Pod Racer. So it's going to be $60. It's going to have all those games and be available in a physical cartridge, which I approve of.
Mm-hmm.
Bug free.
Something I approve of is one sent in by me. And I said, this is just what you need to go with your Saturn controller bum bag, which I went and fetched.
Look at that. It's gorgeous.
Look at that.
Oh, look
beautiful.
At that. This is Zara again, and now selling Master System phone cases that you hang around your neck. So completely can't use the phone. Oh, actually, it might have. No, I don't think it has. Has it got a clear window? I don't think it has. It just looks like a, similar to this, but rectangle shaped and with a neck strap rather than a waist strap. So if you're really into your Sega Master System, I guess you could keep other handheld electronic devices in here as a little carry case. And it says some. Oh no, all we need now is some SG-1000. $14.99 sterling.
Wow, Scott's
want that?
gone off camera. I think he's gone to get his fanny
gone
pack.
to get one.
Yep. I was rushing to the other computer to place an order. Well, if there's, as we properly call them on this side of the Atlantic, the fanny pack, which, also works on your side of the Atlantic too.
Yeah.
But I tell you what isn't a bunch of waste-bound rubbish is Saboteur for the Next. Now, we got an earful about the Next, did we not?
Oh, we did.
We heard every down and dirty detail of the Next, but apparently Saboteur is coming for it. So, you know what I didn't hear from all the stories and crises and, machinations and infighting and outfighting, infiltrations, and even one exfiltration. The one thing I didn't hear out of all of that is the thing actually done and working. What do you know, Mike?
It is, yeah. They've done. I think they've completed the second Kickstarter, and that's what's shipping. And I think they're building up to a third. I think that's right. But people who backed the first and some of the second one have already got theirs, and they are working. And there's an emulator as well you can use with the games as well. So yeah, they are out there and working. That?
Because there's suggestions to the contrary there, but maybe it's an old post.
So one here from Gareth Hamer, and it is Prince of Persia tech demo on ColecoVision, MSX, and SG-1000. And I read this one when it came in, and are those very similar architectures, the same architecture? It sounds like...
I know the SG-1000's very similar to the MSX. As far as
those were 6800 based, so...
Right, so yeah, it's probably all a very similar port, and once you've done one, a simple process to get it to the other, I guess. But yeah, looks good. Tech demo, Prince of Persia.
He obviously had a busy afternoon or evening, Gareth, because 3 minutes. So all these emails from him within 3 minutes of each other. This one is for a release on vinyl of the Super Metroid soundtrack, which is up for pre-order at the moment. And it's vinyl and digital download. The vinyl's €32, and the digital downloads pay what you want. It's sort of it's not just a straight rip of the SNES audio. They've actually done some recreation of the the audio samples and made it sound good and that for the modern day. So if you're a fan of Super Metroid and like your soundtracks, there you go.
One here that doesn't really come as a surprise. Maybe a bit of a surprise that it was still happening. It's from Charlie, and he says, no more discs for you. Best Buy will no longer carry physical movies in 2024, and I am no longer whole, the title says. I'm surprised they're still carrying physical movies, and is anyone really going to miss them?
Yeah, it does surprise me a bit. I know there's
there are movies. I mean, we're not talking games, we're talking movies. Does anyone still go out and rent or buy a DVD? I don't know.
Well, but I don't think they're the Best Buy crowd. Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say there's people who want the 4K UHD Blu-rays with the high bit rate and whatnot. They're not, like you say, going to Best Buy for that. Yeah, I guess maybe they sold the odd few for like kids movies or whatever for presents and things like that. But yeah, even that though, everyone I know with kids now, they've all got Disney Plus subscription. Disney owns pretty much fucking everything.
Yeah.
And you just watch it on that. So
that's at least right now here in the U.S. there are in fact still Redbox and various DVD rental kiosks. There's no actual video stores left, but there are still the kiosks, and they tend to be located, let's just say, where unsophisticated people shop, like the dollar store and the 50-cent store. So you can plunk in your money and get your DVD because streaming is too hard to figure out. I mean, there are people, you've met them. There are people that, I don't know, they literally don't own a computer, right? And if they have a smart TV, they aren't aware of its features or its abilities. And it just is what it is. It's so there's still a market for those, but the sort of the sophisticates that go and visit the Red Box aren't going to Best Buy in general. So is there any market? No, probably not. Most of the world's moved on to streaming. I moved into and then out of streaming, and just adopted the same methodology you did, and that's have your own damn streaming service. So,
yeah,
I don't think I could ever go back. I mean, like, I did all the different solutions over the years, like, Kodi and the websites, and then saving some movies to external drives. But I'm telling you, once you get a proper setup where you've got, the movies all archived on drives at good resolutions, and then the ability to just call them up and play them back, I don't know what will ever replace that. I mean, I would be, I think, pretty content with that for perpetuity.
Yeah. And one from Glenn Minette, who I think is still listening to us at work. Oh, he is. He's there. He's posted, problem with streaming. They are taking movies down all the time and have no way of watching them.
100%. So if you want to hear my list of problems of streaming, one of them is exactly that they, not only will they take movies down, sometimes it's for economic reasons, right? Other times, what was socially and consciously, morally acceptable to 4% of the population on Monday of the second week of October of 2023, by Wednesday might not be. So they will not only just disappear content, they will disappear content from within films. So, I mean, you might go to watch, say, a comedy, and you might find, hey, they just removed 3 or 4 of these lines, right? And sometimes they just do it. Other times they make a pretty peacocky, we're proud of what we did statement, where they say, oh, this film has been, altered to remove problematic content. So, and then of course, we went through the consolidation of streaming and the explosion of streaming, and we ended up with, a myriad. And there's this great meme out there that sort of reflected this myriad, where they had a guy, and it's like a 3-panel meme, and it shows a pirate hat, and then it shows like Netflix and something else, and like you see the pirate hat just disappear from like years. Then all of a sudden you see the guy, and he's got the pirate hat with cobwebs on, and he goes, hello, old friend. And it shows just the tag cloud of all the streaming services. But yeah, I'm telling you, Glenn and other listeners, maybe I should do a hardware flashback on it, and maybe I should bring UK Mike in to talk about it in detail. But it is exceptionally easy, and to different degrees of cost and outcome, you can just build something that is visually indistinguishable from Prime Video or Netflix or any of them. And you can just sit there and have every bit of your content forever. They can't revoke it. They can't censor it because it doesn't exist in their cloud. So if you don't mind making a minor commitment to storage space, you can do this.
Yeah. Something else you might need space for that you can do is buy a new pinball machine. Came from Glenn Minette, and I think he sent the other one later on. Yes, he did indeed. So the first one is based on Jim Henson's film Labyrinth, which seems quite an odd IP for a pinball. I'm just trying to go back up and find the story now because I clicked on the second one to find out who made it. But I did have a read through this when he sent it in. And a lot of the people who've worked on this, there's some familiar names, some not familiar names. Surprisingly, quite a high number of them used to work at Spooky Pinball. Maybe they do when they've worked on this as a side project, but a lot of them worked at Spooky. Whether they've left, I don't know. Whether Spooky's in trouble, I don't know. But just one thing I noticed reading through this. And then the other one was a Jersey Jack machine. A new one, which again seems like an odd IP to choose at this particular moment in time. Elton John. Now, I love 70s Elton John. Early 80s Elton John was the start of the slippery slope that grew ever steeper. But the 70s Elton John, just some classic songs. And they made a pinball with Elton John back then. I just don't get the timing of doing it now when he's just retired or is retiring this year from doing live shows. He can't really sing anymore. He's not going to be performing anymore. Just seems an odd choice and some odd timing. May make a good game, I don't know. But there's only 2 versions of it. One is $12,000 and one is $15,000. So I suspect it might be a bit of a try before you buy for most people.
So, got a really cool reply here from Doug regarding the Odyssey 2, right? And, he had a couple of folks had say, hey, man, cover that thing. You guys never cover that. So we did. And, his, part of his response that was, oh, but you guys didn't talk about games. Well, no, it's a hardware flashback. We talk about hardware. But I did say to him, we should do a top 10 because we haven't yet. So Doug gave us a very well thought out, detailed reply. And in that, he gives his top 10 list with some notes on some of them and others of them just listed here. And he gave some honorable mentions and discusses some of the homebrew. So, Mike, if you don't mind, leave these 2 in here and maybe flag them or whatever so that we can all come and review it. Let's have a look at this, and then we'll do a listener requested top 10 for the Odyssey 2.
Yeah, I have started making some notes and played a couple of games for the Odyssey 2 top 10, so I've started working on it. It's not going to be anytime soon because I've only played a handful of the games, so I need to give them all a good testing. But it is on the cards to do, and I have kept these emails to one side so that we can reference them in the top 10 and discuss, his list at the end or the beginning or whatever as we go through it. So, yes, I will keep these to one side.
That reminded me of another game I've been playing the last month because I thought, I need to sort out playing some Odyssey stuff. But I started playing Mario Golf on the Game Boy Color, and that's taken over so much of my time, on the loo or having waiting 5 minutes for something or while I'm cooking. Just absolutely addicted. Flew through the first few tournaments without any bother, and then the last 2, the final one and the unlockable special one after that, really giving me some grief, but enjoying just playing rounds and rounds and rounds of golf.
What was it, Mario Golf?
Yeah.
On what?
Game Boy Color.
All right. I think I started playing that one time, and it was taking me through a horrendous storyline at the beginning that I couldn't skip.
There's a bit of that, but you can get through it pretty quickly.
Right.
Just shortcut through.
I only had a few minutes at the time. I thought, I've not got time for this. I'll play something else.
I think that's what I've done in the past.
Yeah.
Speaking of
here
Game
from
Boy,
Gareth. Oh, go ahead, sir.
Doug sent one in, which is a Retro Dodo article where they went and visited a company that had supported their channel now and again, which is called Retro Modding, who make all sorts of shells and new buttons and bits and pieces for mostly for Game Boys, but possibly for other stuff. So it's just an interesting look inside their factory and warehouse, which is a lot larger than I would have thought it would have been. I thought it'd be a few pieces, they'd have a 1 or 2 bits in stock and probably in someone's back bedroom. But it seemed like quite a reasonable outfit. So there must be quite a market for aftermarket Game Boy shit these days.
I know. I know. And I
got a few weird
discovered
ones laying
something
around here.
I discovered a thing at Play Blackpool, which I've also seen a video on it since it popped up on YouTube. What do they call it now? The Nintendo Macro? GBA Macro?
GBA Macro, DS Macro.
It's basically ripping the top screen off a DS and just using the bottom screen and playing it as a GBA for some reason. I don't know. Well, I guess if your top screen's broken.
Yeah, well, better screen than most of the GBAs. Headphone socket, which not all the GBAs have. Rechargeable battery.
Yeah.
There's some benefits to it. I can see why some people do it.
Yes. Okay, what's this?
It's here from Gareth Hamer. And he lets us know there's a site that I guess tracks retail sales of all sorts of stuff. And for the area they track, which isn't really clear here, it says in the U.S., but I don't know if it's all the U.S. or what they track. But anyway, since May of 2022, one new Wii U was sold in the U.S. And he really is curious who this person is. Yeah, the Wii U has got to be, I mean, for me, Nintendo's, God, for all their wonderful releases, they have dropped some big disappointments. And I have to say, the Wii U is probably, unless something else just collides in, oh yeah, there's that one. The Wii U is probably the biggest disappointment Nintendo ever launched. And I can honestly say this is the one that came out of the box and went back into the box with the least amount of wear and least amount of use. And apparently it's probably dead already because if you don't take it out and use it so often, it bricks. And yeah, I forgot to do that. I don't even know where it is. That's how important this thing is to me. So I'll probably find it 4 years from now as I'm getting ready to move and wonder if it even still works and then not be bothered to care to try. So
hit it.
One here from Gareth Hamer. An Analog coming out with a new system at some point. An FPGA N64. What do we think about that?
They popped down to the core store.
Yeah, they certainly have.
Yeah,
it's an interesting one to choose. I'm not completely against it because it's something that doesn't emulate well, and if you've not got an original one, you can struggle to play the games. And
the original ones look a bit, no matter what you sort of solution you use, really, they don't look great on a modern telly.
Through an upscaler, no.
The problem I find here is, so there's a Mr. Core in development for the N64, which was one of the things that, was always said the Mister would never be able to do. Whether it can do it, I don't know, which indicates that this is going to need a larger FPGA, which means it's probably going to be quite expensive.
Yeah.
So at what point, looking at I've got a big box just next to me of quite a lot of N64 cartridges. I do have find enjoyment out of playing some N64 games. I will be the first to admit that the majority of them are pretty shit. Is it worth spending possibly upwards of £500 or dollars on something just to play some, fairly shit games? Now, if they make a good aftermarket N64 controller to go with it that isn't going to destroy itself, the analog stick and things, maybe I'd be interested in picking one of them up, but not really the whole console. But again, I'm maybe not the target market. I'm sat next to the N64 and a big CRT, so obviously I look like I'm in the CRT.
You're on a big CRT, son.
Yeah. The only way to make N64 games look reasonable is with some emulation, an upresing, or on a CRT as nature intended.
Yeah, what I do like about the N64,
or not at all.
What I do like about it, and obviously the GameCube that followed it, is the 4-player ports on the front, so you could get 4-player games without having to go multi-tap and all of that.
Well,
I think that was good.
Yeah, but the problem with that is that
on the N64 you get like 3 frames per second.
Yeah, it's not worth it. It's really not worth it. It's like the expansion pack. You know, there's some games that some games it's fine, the expansion pack, but a lot of them they went, oh yeah, we've got a higher resolution video mode if you use the expansion pack. But what it means is higher resolution, like you get 10% more pixels for 50% less frame rate. Well, it's not a good deal.
No.
Why?
I tell you what is a good deal is what this fellow here, Chris, submitted. And it is a website stole and monetized a free browser game.
Oh yeah.
So the developer did a little turnaround on them. So
literally.
Yeah. So apparently there's a 24-year-old internet photo. I've never come across this on the internet, but a bent over old man stretching out his anus. And so the guy, I guess they were using something called iframe, which I don't know what that is, to display his game as their game and then monetize it. So he replaced his game with the Spelunking documentary. And
so I know you finished Zelda now, but if you ever go back to Tears of the Kingdom, when you next go up to one of the new shrines, and you see the entrance, and it looks very much like that. It's someone at Nintendo
this is
was
one
having a bit
fella
of fun
or
with
anybody. And then Midnight Radio replies, "That was me." Wait, that was you in the photo, or that was you that swapped the code, or that was you that stole the code? I mean, there's a lot of me's there, Midnight.
Which part of this story were you?
So another one here I got pulled up, so I'll just hit it while it's here. And it is David Gyrich, the Pioneer Laser Active Generation episode number 121, Pioneer Laserdisc documentary. So it's a documentary on the Pioneer Laser Active. So looks like it's an hour. So not exactly a short one. Just kind of flipping through it, it seems like it's not just one guy with his back to his collection going on and on about stuff. It's like a lot of clips, and this looks like it was a lot of work to put together. And it was 3 years ago. Only 3.2 thousand views. Well, that's some bullshit. Why don't you guys give it a watch and see what you can do? Because just from skipping through it, I can see kind of the arc of it here. From concept to production to failure to, and I would check it out.
Yeah, I have bookmarked that, and I will watch that later. Well, maybe not later. Maybe tomorrow. Maybe the day after. I don't know. I'm not committing myself, but I will watch it. One here from David Gyrich again. David really needs to get a job, doesn't he? This is a Metal Gear Solid port on the Sega Saturn, and it appears to show it running, and he's not committing himself and saying it definitely is, but it says video appears to show Metal Gear Solid running on Saturn. I mean, it ran on PS1, and a lot of those games were on both systems at the time, so maybe it is.
Yeah, it could be. It's and to be fair, it's probably be a better overall job than the recent ports of the Metal Gear Solid collection to current consoles, which have not gone down very well in the community.
What have they done with them?
So they took the Metal Gear Solid. It's mostly Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3 that are the problem. Which are just the PS3 and Xbox 360 HD remasters running on modern hardware, still locked to 720p, and then just like really nastily scaled up to 4K, even on like PC.
Right.
Well, PC only allowed it to go to 1080p, and then whatever, and all sorts. The Metal Gear Solid 1, there's been some problems with input latency and stuff, but supposedly M2 did the PS1 emulator that they're using, so it shouldn't be that bad. But
right.
I think that's got really bad filter, like scaling to make it full screen as well, and just shit like that. Just really
just buy original hardware.
Quick and dirty Konami job, yeah. It's like there's better ways to do it just these days. Like play it. Unfortunately.
So another port here, Gareth Hamer sends for the 3DO, Tempest has been ported. And the 3DO is kind of another funny one. It's one that I realized at some point I don't have one of these. So I went and bought one, and I wasn't sure what to expect because, we know, like, how many people have we talked to about, oh, that's when I was at 3DO. They were all at 3DO. And you would expect, like, well, it's got to be something to this. Maybe just consumer market didn't get it or whatever, but I'm not sure. It doesn't really seem to do anything exceptional, certainly not worthy of the ginormous hype. So I probably, mine kind of sits there. And I've not even been really tempted to play it much at all because the games are kind of on everything else, everywhere else. And, it just didn't really do much for me. So this probably won't move the needle much on that.
Yeah, and I like Tempest, but yeah, same with the 3DO. I was thinking about getting one at one point, and then my mate got one, and I was like, oh yeah, like, well, which model did you get? How are you going? He's like, I don't really know what to do with it now. I've just kind of got it, and it looks all right, I guess, on the shelf. Yeah, I'm probably never going to play it.
I'm not sure what speed the drive is in them, but when I've played them at expos, the load times are horrendous.
Fortunately for him, he bought it back in the days. This is like 20 years ago when retro gaming was hardware and software was cheap. So he didn't spend a great deal on it.
Right.
Back when people would practically give you stuff, and then now you've got to pay. They want you to pay through the nose for it.
Yeah. So, couple more just to wrap up, and then we're done. David Gyrick again sent this in. Metal Gear Solid Cologne. An official Metal Gear Solid Shadow Moses cologne. Unisex. Well, everything's unisex these days, isn't it? You can't say for men these days, can you? Designed and engineered by Numskull Designs. Famed for their expensive colognes, no doubt. So you can, if you want to smell like Snake, then you can do.
What disappoints me about this is they didn't call it Shadow Noses.
Of all the things to be disappointed about.
Sorry for your disappointment.
Yeah. Lord Neil sent this one. Did we do this? He says, wait, what? Super Mario Brothers on Intellivision. Don't know if it's real. Couldn't be asked to research. It looks correct, though. I kind of like that attitude. I don't know if it's real, and I can't be asked to verify. Have at it.
So I went and took a look, and the video has only been up 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember Electronite or anybody like that doing one. So this may either somebody did one, and I just hadn't seen it yet, or this is like the Silverman show when they did the Clico Chameleon unboxing.
Yeah.
They put in some fucking effort, man.
Yeah. So that box looks
very,
very new.
It's too new. Yeah, that's at least a repro box.
Yeah, and the manual. He's in.
Well,
the manual
clearly, or a new release. Like,
yeah, it could be a new release.
I mean, if it's real, it's a new release of a port. Clearly it's not from, 80 whatever. But, yeah, I don't know. You know what? I could look around, but I'm just gonna wait and see. I think it'll be clear because I read through the comments, and none of them say this is fake. They're like, "This is great. This is great." So clearly, I think I don't know. We'll find out.
Have you seen the controller, Scott? Skip to 55 seconds in. It's got a 3D printed controller.
Yeah, there's like in the comments there's a link to a shop, and I was like, oh, is this? And I wasn't really paying attention. I was like, oh, is this where they're selling this game? And it's like, oh no, it's just a link to the shop, the controller.
Yeah. You could print one of that.
Yeah, so if it's a fake to push a controller, that could either go well or so very not well for them. Yeah, like if they're like, oh yeah, we April Fooled a television port of Mario to show you our new controller. That could create a legion of people dedicated to never buying that controller ever. Or doing screwed up things with your STL. I don't know. But I tell you what I do know that seems kind of anticlimactic. Sent in by Damian Thompson, who is in fact not anticlimactic. It's just the story is. And it says, whilst the internet is kind of blowing this out of proportion, so long as it's paired, it's okay for life, then something we've been living with since prior generations. And so he's not that worked up about it either. But it's PS5 Slim's new external disk drive. So let's say you bought a PS5, and then you really regret, I guess, not buying the drive version. You can now get a drive. So it looks like it's got a drive.
So this even the drive version comes like this. It's basically just the driveless one with a drive in the box already attached, but it's not authenticated yet. So even that you still need to authenticate. So if you're buying a PS5 or need to replace your disk drive, or you want to sell your disk drive to someone else, we don't know how that's going to work.
No.
And the authentication servers aren't there. You're kind of fucked. Or if you bought a PS5 with a disc and you bought some discs and we wanted, for whatever reason, you took them away with you to a cabin retreat as your Christmas gift, and you're going to just sit in a cabin in the middle of nowhere and play your new PS5. You can't, because you need to authenticate it before you can then play the discs on it, which is just
that is a unique case. That's a unique use case.
It's not going to be that
likely to end up in.
It's not going to be that much of a deal for like the next 10 years, say. And like you say, yeah, like people have said, yes, we already have disc hardware that's tied to a console motherboard. And so, like, when your disk drive breaks, you don't swap the disk drive over. You just swap the internals of the disk drive and leave, the PCBs that do the authentication handshake. But
what I'm utterly uncertain of what they're accomplishing here.
I don't get
at best what they're all right. So you're going to pair the drive to the console, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to exclude the ability to, let's say somebody made a third-party drive that did none of the checks or spoofed the checks, right? So you could still do that with a mod chip. You using the actual drive. That's how mod chips work. The ones that spoof, they basically simulate whatever baked in foible that they're doing on the drive so that it would work. But who cares? I mean, so the drive, the mechanical part that's somewhat possible of the list of things that could fail on there, the fan, depending on how well the board was fabbed, whether or not you're going to have BGA problems. But that drive is one of the more failure-prone items. And you're going to make it the part that can only be replaced with pairing. And pairing the drive, I mean, I just don't see any benefit. And they said here, like their take on it is, since, they're only going to allow validated drives, then they can only, they can make sure content won't be loaded. Well, again, you're presuming mod chips don't exist and work the way they do. But even if you did, all right, so during the active lifetime of the console, there's already somebody banging away at how to get games to load off of the USB, off of that eSATA port. And
got an
I'm
NVMe,
willing...
a off-the-shelf NVMe slot on them. So, by the time, well, you already get 4 terabyte ones, piece of piss. I mean, okay, you can't get that many PlayStation 5 games even on a 4 terabyte one. But, before the end of its lifetime, there will be 16 terabyte NVMe drives that you can just easily put in. And yeah, people will have...
Before the end of its lifetime,
those.
Not only will you be able to buy multi-terabyte, drives, they're probably going to come with games already on them. And it's going to happen. I don't understand this at all. Maybe they felt, obviously we haven't seen the white papers, how they, implemented it or what. But maybe it's done in such a way that it didn't cost them a lot of internal effort. It was maybe a couple days and, of actual work and a couple weeks of testing. And maybe what they intend here is it'll complicate things long enough. It'll give them another year in the marketplace without, piracy, right? Okay, great. This bothers me not at all, and I'll tell you why. The reason it doesn't bother me at all is because I've just adopted a flow of things where I don't mod my current console. I've done all that. I've done the Wii with the switches and the mod chips and the ROMs. And what it comes down to, but I always buy the games because I like having the collection of things and I want them to make more games. I'm not unwilling to reward the manufacturer for making all these great games. Of course I will. So for me, my way of doing things is whatever my current handhold and my current consoles are. Like my Wii, I've updated the software versions on that. My PS5, I've updated the software versions on that. My the other one, the Switch. I'm sorry, not the Wii, the Switch. So basically the Switch and the PS5 are the main two that I have hooked up. I have the Xbox in the garage, but it hasn't been turned on in a year and a half. But basically I do update software versions. I buy the physical games for the console. And then what I do is when I retire, air quotes, a console, and, I'll clean it up, box it back up, then at some point it'll become interesting again. And then I'll mod the piss out of it. Like the Wii, there was maybe about a 10-year period I didn't have a Wii really hooked up and available. And now I do again. So my Wii, it's in a crystal case. It's got the blue LED. It's got a hard drive inside of that crystal case, hooked up where the optical drive used to be. And it's a cool piece. And it's modded. Of course, it's got the hard drive with every game ever made on it. It's great. That's how this will be. By the time this is totally broken, where somebody will sell a module that snaps in place of that drive and has flash memory on it, and you can load any PS5 game instantly to it via, USB-C transfer, I will absolutely do that. And by then I'll be on the PS7, and the PS5 will come out of retirement and be loaded up with whatever hardware solutions available. So this is of no impact or concern to me whatsoever. It's just a curiosity that they tried this.
Yeah, some of the speculation I think is probably quite accurate is that it's basically all down to Hollywood and the DMCA, and the only way they can get the Blu-ray HDCP encryption chain to work is you have to have drives locked down and things like that.
Which stops what? Like literally every movie that every Atmos.
That's not how they work, is it? They for how many years were they still trying to do DVD copy protection that was just completely blown apart because everyone had leaked the keys to it, and it's just nonsense the whole time.
Yeah, within minutes of a movie hitting any streaming service or any any digital service, no matter what it is, there is a copy of that movie out there within minutes. Okay. The whole use case of of all the humans I've known in my entire lifespan, I think there's one, and that would be random, that could conceivably butt up against the use case of being on an outcropping in, the Carpathian Mountains with nothing but a PS5, a battery bank, and a 3-inch by 3-inch monitor trying to activate his DVD drive. That's it. Nobody else. It's a use case that they throw out, but still, I think it's a marginal use case at best. I just don't see this being a thing. I just don't.
And it doesn't bother me because I will never buy a PS5, so that's fine.
Never say never, Mike. You don't know. That could happen.
Scott, click on the link that Random posted in chat.
All right.
The cab looks...
Is that the one?
That's the Sega machine that we were talking about. I think the cab's different because this is a Japanese one, obviously, and the one we saw wasn't. The game and the graphics does look kind of legit, though.
They have some other stuff on that site. If you click the top breadcrumb, there's a driving arcade machines. There's a few sort of more modern motorbike stuff, but it's mostly MotoGP from Raw Thrills and like a Fast and the Furious, I think probably reskinned one. Yeah, that seemed to be, I think, the only Sega one that they had on there.
Yeah, it could be this one, but in a different cab.
Maybe, but that only confuses matters.
I have to troll around pictures of the expo.
Or we'll have to just keep going to expos and seeing if it crops up again.
But it did look like Dreamcast Naomi. Have you tried, Michael, looking for a list of Naomi games? Because Naomi was the hardware version of the Dreamcast. And I wonder if you go looking for that, if you might find what you're looking for.
I haven't, but I will.
Could be...
I'm doing it right now, just in case.
Chihiro as easily as well.
Again, listeners, talk amongst yourselves. I think we are done. Neil Barmer was doing the dishes when I played the last prize alarm, but he did come back from doing that and type in the phrase that pays. So, on a technicality, I'll let him win a prize. He suggested it, and he wants a Tetris jigsaw, which I can't remember if I've got or you've got, Random.
I think I've got that somewhere. My prize box is well and truly buried at the moment, but
okay. And who was the other? Richard, was it? Richard Smart will email me with his chosen prize. So, thank you for listening, people. Glenn Minette, I hope your workday has been vastly improved by our inane drivel. And if not, well, tough shit, really. You're at work
now.
You're at work. What do you expect? Get on with it. Thank you to everyone else who dipped in and out. And, thank you for listening live. And if you didn't, thank you for listening later. And if you didn't do that, well, how the hell are you hearing this? That's what I want to know. So, on with whatever is left of the podcast, and we will catch ye all again next month. So
that we will do.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.